Welcome, everyone, to the Irish Breakdown podcast, coming to you live here on a Wednesday. Can't believe it's a Wednesday already. We have a little bit of a Notre Dame midweek rundown for you all. We're going to bring up a litter of topics for you all today, covering spring football, covering the blue gold game, covering recruiting updates. Brian's already laughing at me. I don't even know why.
Because I'm like, please get the N right. Please get the N right.
I did get the N right. I did get it right, man. I was very focused and super, I was hyper focused of getting the name right on that.
So just so people understand why I'm laughing, when I was typing the name of the show in, I typed in a B instead of an N, and it said Midweek Rubdown, which would have put a completely different spin on this show. And so I told Ryan about it, and I'm thinking, oh, God, I hope I didn't jinx him. Now he's going to say it wrong to start the show.
Welcome to the Midweek Rubdown. Here we are. I nailed it, man.
You're a true professional, Mr. Roberts.
I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you. We don't really need to introduce ourselves because I know we have a great community here, but I'm Ryan Roberts. That is Brian Driscoll, of course, the publisher here at irishbreakdown.com. We have an exciting show for you all because, as you know, this Saturday, it's the Blue Gold Scrimmage, which concludes spring football for Notre Dame. It's a very bittersweet moment for Notre Dame football because it's awesome. Oh, no, don't start this, Bill Walsh. Please do not start this in the chat right now. I can't do this, man. I can't do this. I'm trying to keep my composure because I'm so excited about Notre Dame football. I'm just not even going to look at what the comments are. I'm just going to stay laser focused to what the screen is here because we have a lot of topics that we want to hit here today. We're going to start with a little bit of a kind of a blue gold game preview. We're going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. But today we're really going to focus on positionally players that we are most excited about to see how they perform on Saturday. Maybe some breakout stars, if you want to coin it that way, but guys that we really just are excited to watch. Because I think that's
a fun prediction, right? Like something
that's the point of spring, man.
To see as opposed to what would necessarily this is going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part about spring, man, is we love to see those guys that really take advantage of opportunities, right? And come out of nowhere a little bit. If you want to kind of phrase it that way, that's fine. But we're going to talk about some spring game predictions. Positionally, we're going to go from quarterback all the way down to defensive backs. We're going to hit every single position there, 5 on each side of the football. We're going to hit that for you all today. Also going to talk a little bit of, since we're coming to the conclusion, the end of spring, some spring surprises, right? And this could be players. This could be kind of headlines. We just want to talk about some things that maybe we weren't necessarily expecting coming into spring, whether that is a breakout star, whether that is a position battle, whatever it might be. We're going to hit some of those top headlines. We're also going to talk a little bit of draft format for the game. So if you all aren't aware, tonight, I think it was 9:15 Eastern time. Tomorrow morning. I'm sorry.
9:15, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, 9:15 Eastern time, Notre Dame is going to be picking the squads for the blue and gold game. We're not 100% sure of what the format is. We know that last year it was 2 veterans who kind of just divvied up and sorted the squad that way, kind of in a back and forth type of like a snake draft type of format. Not sure what the format is, but we're going to discuss maybe a couple options for what we would want to see as how the draft would go to pick these teams. I think that would be an interesting conversation. And of course, you all know, as it being the conclusion of spring, that also means it's big time recruiting weekend for Notre Dame, but also this week has been very busy on the recruiting side of things as well. On Monday, we had Jason Robinson, who is a wide receiver out of Long Beach Poly in California, former USC commit, take his visit to Notre Dame. And if you were listening to us live on a Wednesday, he's still on campus at Notre Dame. So a multi-day unofficial visit, which is a pretty rare thing. So he's been on campus. So I'm going to have a little bit of an update on that. We're also going to talk today. Cole Mullins, who is a star defensive end out of Mill Creek in Georgia, is also on campus. And this weekend, we have a flurry of very important and talented 2024 commits that will be on campus and 2025. But we're going to really focus on 2024 and what are some of the more important visits this weekend as far as which are the momentum building ones for Notre Dame? Which one does the staff really need to hit out of the park this weekend, the most important ones? So we're going to hit on all of that today. Then we're going to hit a mailbag at the end. If you want to hit that like button now, we would very much appreciate that. Subscribe to this podcast if you aren't already. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews. And as always, we're community here. share this podcast with your friends. They love Notre Dame football. If they don't, if they're a opponent's fan that want to hear about some early kind of understanding of what Notre Dame could bring to that game next year, they're USC fans or Ohio State fans, whatever, send it their way as well. Maybe they'll enjoy the content. So, Brian, I really do want to get into this blue and gold preview a little bit, though, my friends. Players we're looking forward to the most at each position. This is not necessarily us predicting who is the premier performer at each different spot, right? This is more about who are we excited to see?
And who we hope maybe breaks out in this game. And I'll say this, too, before we dive into that part, Ryan. This is one of my favorite parts of the year because, people joke like, well, you can't take spring game seriously because remember Junior Jabby was a spring game MVP and
sure
and all that. And you know what? Like that's one of the things but that's one of the things I love about it though, because there's going to be some kids on this football team that don't ever get that chance to shine on a Saturday afternoon in the fall. But they're going to be able to look back on their careers and say, you know what though? But I had that one day.
That's true.
Where I had the golden helmet on and there was fans in the stands and I was inside Notre Dame Stadium and boy, that was pretty awesome. It was a pretty awesome deal. Because in my lifetime, all spring games except for one have been inside Notre Dame Stadium. There's one year they were doing construction and we had to do it on the practice field.
Ooh.
But yeah, it was pretty. They put up like fake bleachers or temporary bleachers and all that. Hey, you know what though? Props to Notre Dame. They still had it. They could have canceled it and they still had it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's just, but that's part of the fun though, right? Is sometimes you see that guy that maybe might never get a chance. See, like let's just say Steve Angeli never gets a chance to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. You know what he's always going to have? He's going to have that game-winning drive in this first blue gold game. You can't take that away from him. And so that's what part of the fun of these games. But then there's also the part of like, boy, I really want to see this guy, step up and go into the spring or the summer and the winter things with some really good momentum. And those are the things that I really enjoy seeing.
Well, and we saw a little glimpse last year too, Brian. Like I remember, and unfortunately, Jadarian Price got hurt last offseason, but like him in that spring game last year, I'm like, oh, the hype around Jadarian Price is real, sir. Like this is not fake stuff. Like this is real. So obviously that one didn't work out, but for most of these, like there's not all of them aren't going to work out to them translating to being the guy, right? But there are going to be some headlines that we look back on and say, we really did start getting a glimpse of this rise for this certain player during the spring practice and during the blue gold game. It does happen every year, both sides of the coin. So quarterback, let's start at quarterback here. Very interesting conversation. Of course, you have a lot of headlines. Sam Hartman's first live action for Notre Dame in a game setting. You have Tyler Buchner and his rise this spring. What does it look like, again, after a very strong spring? Steve Angeli, you just mentioned, who had a nice end to the blue gold game last year. And then you got Kenny Minchey, who is the top 100 caliber 4-star quarterback, true freshman in his first ever spring ball, seeing what he has and giving a little glimpse of his future at Notre Dame. So, Brian, I'm going to kick it off with you, man. Who's a player that you're looking most forward to seeing on Saturday at the quarterback position?
Well, this is one of those ones, Ryan, where I'm going to cheat and give two answers because I can.
Okay.
Because my answer is different. My number one read is Sam Hartman. And the reason is so people will shut up. Like, seriously, I'm just so annoyed by the narratives around Sam Hartman. But my answer would have been, prior to that, Kenny Minchey. I'm just really looking forward to seeing Kenny Minchey running the offense. We really haven't had a chance to see him do that this spring. Would love to see him kind of go into the summer with some positive vibes, some positive momentum. Look, I know what Tyler Buchner can do. I know what Sam Hartman can do. And if you don't know what those guys can do by now, I mean, I just don't know what to tell you. And I really don't care what they do in a spring game. It'll be nice to actually see Tyler in a spring game. That'll be nice. Yes. But the big thing for me is going to be, I just want to see Kenny Minchey really just kind of get that chance to run the offense, which we really haven't seen him do. And I hope that he does well because, it's always about it's about building blocks, right? And it's about building confidence and just, he's not in that mix to be the starter this year. He's not working with the ones or the twos. It'd be just good to get in that stadium and let him go play and see what he's got and see him healthy again, which he really wasn't as a senior. So that's kind of what, quarterback wise, that's what I'm looking for. That's the one I'm most excited about, but I have a feeling most people are going to be looking forward to seeing Hartman or Buchner to either make them feel better about whatever they've read and whatever narratives that are going around, or to, some people just like to have their confirmations or their biases confirmed, whatever. Those are the two names, but for me, I'm really looking forward to see Kenny Minchey spend that thing on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Minchie too. And I mean, to your point, Brian, I bet there's people out there that just want to see Hartman ball out and Buckner not do that well. So they're like, oh no, we're right. I was right this whole time to your priors conversation, right? I actually am going to pick Tyler Buckner here because you hit on one reason. One, I was at the spring game last year at Blue and Gold. He wasn't able to play. Obviously, he had the injury beforehand, wasn't able to play. So I haven't seen him in a spring game live. And I will be on site, obviously, with you and be able to kind of see it live and in person. And I haven't been able to be at a spring practice this year as well. So I want to see the maturation. But more than anything, we're hearing so many great things about Tyler Buckner this spring. It really seems like he has taken the best of this competition and said, guys, I'm here, man. I'm not going, right? Like I am going out with a fight as far as being the starting quarterback here. I'm not just conceding like, oh yeah, Sam, go ahead, man. You're the starter. I'll let it play out for a year and I'll, see how the coin gets tossed in the offseason, right? Like, no. He's saying, I want to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. I'm taking my best step forward. So I want to see, and again, this isn't like the end-all be-all that he has a great spring game to cap it off, but it would be nice, right? The great spring, and then you cap it off with a strong performance to really just kind of set that apart and be like, hey, man, this is a legitimate competition. This is one where Tyler Buckner did not back down from this. He took advantage of every opportunity, and he checked a lot of boxes this spring. And with hearing how great he's looked, without seeing my own eyes as far as how good he's been in practice, I would love to see Tyler Buckner cap off spring with a big game. Yeah. I think that would be really fun to watch. So I'll go with Buckner.
I mean, honestly, I hope all the quarterbacks play well.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's wild, Ryan, to see what's going on. Like, I am so fired up about what I've seen from the quarterbacks, but apparently I'm like the only one, right? It's so wild. Like, I think they're both playing well. I know who Sam Hartman is. I want to see him play well. From what we heard from our sources, Ryan, about the scrimmage last week, is Sam Hartman played great. Tyler Buckner played well too, but Sam Hartman played great. I think there's this narrative that's coming because people are making opinions off of what they've seen from 2 out of now 12 practices because they had another one today. That's such a bad idea. Such a bad idea. You're going to tell me you're going to ignore what Sam Hartman's done the last 2 years, 3 years really, because of what you saw in 2 practices. When you don't understand what a practice is trying to accomplish, it's just bonkers to me. It really is bonkers to me. And I do want to see Tyler play well. I think he needs that good positive momentum going in the offseason as well. I want to see them all play well. Plus, Ryan, just for joy, I watched the Ohio State spring game and the Penn State spring game and the Michigan spring game. They're freaking boring. Just really boring offense, boring quarterback play. Just boring. I want this game to be a lot more fun. So we'll see.
And we haven't had a legitimate quarterback battle in a couple years here either, right? Like we know last year with the Buckner-Drew Pine situation wasn't really a battle. I want this actually to be a battle, man. I want Sam to be playing his best football, Tyler to be playing his best football, and let the chips fall when the final decision is made. Like that's what I personally want to see. So quarterback's going to be a really interesting conversation piece. One that isn't as interesting for a spring practice, but obviously we're going to preview here is running back, because running back is a little bit of those, like sometimes you play a little bit of thud, you're not going full, you're not taking it to the ground all the time, like you're letting up a little bit. So it really is hard for a running back to show out consistently in the spring game type of formats usually, unless they're a space player, right? Guys that can really get on the edge, catch some passes, work the screen game. Like that's why Jadarian Price really showed out last year, because that 40-plus yard touchdown that he had on the screen pass, like that was the big play from a running back last year. But still exciting, Brian, because we have some talented running backs. I know Logan Diggs has been a little banged up throughout the spring, so like I doubt he's going to be available.
I wouldn't play him. Well, I don't know if he's going to be available or not. I wouldn't play him. He got hurt in the Blue Bowl game. Honestly, Ryan, there's only one answer to this at running back, and it's Jabron Payne.
Yeah,
Jadarian Price isn't going to play. We know who Audric Estime and Logan. Like if Audric Estime goes out and runs for 150 yards, like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I am excited to see how thinned out he looks, though. I've heard
he doesn't look that much thinner. He really doesn't. No, gotcha. He looks leaner, but he's not like he still looks like Audric Estime. He's quicker and all that, but I want to see Jabron Payne. I really do. He's had a good spring. I've heard great things about him from how he's performed. He's gotten a ton of reps because Jadarian Price is out. Logan Diggs has been out. And I think having a guy like Jabron, he's another guy, Ryan, that it's a confidence booster for him because he's going to get probably reburied on the depth chart in the fall. But if he can have a good spring and say, hey, look, man, you're going to get your time. These guys are going to be gone soon. Yep. You redshirted last year. You got plenty of time left. You missed your last 2 years of high school, basically, for the most part. So, you've got plenty of time. You don't have a lot of tread on them tires, just be patient, buddy. Because Jabron Payne's a good football player. And the one practice we saw where he actually got a lot of touches, I'm like, yo, this kid he looked like the guy. Remember when he signed, Ryan? We were like, look, this is a risky signing because of his injury history. But if this kid can get back to being what he was as a sophomore, it's a good football player.
Yeah.
And I had him ranked pretty high. Notre Dame was like really going after 5 backs early on in the 2022 class. They were going after Nick Singleton, Dallin Hayden, the kid that went to Oklahoma, Gavin Sawchuk, yeah, Quinshawn Judkins, and Jabron Payne. That was really the 5 that they were primarily looking at. And then Jabron got hurt, and he kind of fell off. Quinshawn they liked a lot, but he just he was going to stay in the South. Sawchuk they backed off of a little bit because I don't think they liked him, and then they put all their eggs into the Nicholas Singleton, Logan Diggs. Oh, I'm sorry. Of course, Jadarian Price was in part of that. They got him early. I'm talking about like after Jadarian committed, but they put all their eggs in the Nick Singleton and Dallin Hayden basket once Price jumped on board because they liked Jadarian better than they did Dallin Hayden. I mean, excuse me, Gavin Sawchuk. Yeah. But you end up with that kid ends up very twisted road to get here. But you forget that before that kid's injuries, Notre Dame staff and not even the Dylan McCullough Notre Dame staff, the Lance Taylor Notre Dame staff was very high on Jabron Payne after his sophomore year. I'd love to see him healthy and out there running again because he's a good football player, and he's going to get his chance to be part of this rotation at some point in time. I don't know if it'll be next year. If everybody's healthy, probably not next year. But if let's just say that Notre Dame has the year that you and I hope that they're going to have, and they're running for 230 yards a game, and Audrick's over 1,000 yards, and Logan's around 1,000 yards, and those 2 kids both leave to go pro.
Yeah.
I'm looking, okay, Jadarian, Jabron, Jeremiah Love, Aeneas, hopefully they can get Keydron Young. All of a sudden I'm like, yeah, okay, they're good. They're good. Jabron Payne's a good football player, man. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him out there. And really, that's the only answer. I mean, because you can be excited to see Audrick, but like you already know what Audrick is. So for me, that's the only answer for me. I'm not saying that everyone else can have whatever opinion they want to have. I'm just saying for me, there's only one answer to that one.
Yeah, and Audrick Estime, again, he's not really the type of back that usually shows out in these types of games, right? Like it's usually the space players. And Jabron Payne is more of that guy that can, create some stuff after the catch and, take an outside zone and hit a corner. Like that's more his style, right? So I agree with you. He was going to be my pick because I think the backstory is really interesting with a guy like Jabron Payne, to your point, right? I mean, as a sophomore, he averaged over 10 yards a carry as a sophomore playing against some good competition in the state of Ohio. Like, it's not like he was playing nobodies, right? Like, he's playing some good teams. The last 3 years, I think he has like 40 total carries to his credit because he was injured junior year. Senior year, he had very little tread because of the injury, obviously, again. And then he didn't carry the football this past year as a true freshman at Notre Dame. So, very limited example of what he is as a football player other than practice reps over this past year. So I'm excited to see him healthy because he got through this freshman year fully healthy. Like there was no setbacks, which was great. Does he have that burst back? Is he that type of guy that we'll be able to see a little bit of that during this game? Because he's the type of player, again, that I think will be able to show out in this type of setting, which is exciting.
Yeah. I had a chance to actually ran into his grandparents last year at a game, which was pretty cool. I think it was a Syracuse game. And, that's the other part of this we don't talk enough about is just, these parents and these grandparents and these relatives that get to see their kids put on that gold helmet and get out on the field.
Yeah.
And there's usually only one game a year where all the families are happy because they get to see their kids play, and it's the blue gold game.
And not only the families, but I think you said there was going to be around 400 former, Notre Dame alumni or something.
Alums, yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be a It's going to be a spectacle to watch, man. Recruits that are going to be in town, fans that are going to be in town, and the families that are going to be in town for these players. It's going to be really exciting. So that's running back. Let's move to wide receiver, Brian. A lot of different ways I feel like we can go this way, right? I mean, it's the assumed breakouts that we've been talking about all spring, the Tobias Merriweathers, the Deion Colesys, but we have the 3 freshmen that are there. We have Jaden Thomas, obviously, as the leading returning receiver who's playing his best football down the stretch. We have Lorenzo Styles, who seems to be playing multiple positions right now in spring. Who's the guy that's going to break out? I'll throw it to you first. Like, who's the wide receiver that you are most excited about?
I've been so back and forth on this one, Ryan. I've I've been on Braylon James for a while. I've been on Jaden Greathouse for a while. I want to see Rico. I want to see Chris Tyree get some touches in the slot. Like, I think that's going to be exciting. I really want to see if Deion Colesy can capitalize and perform well. But at the end of the day, the guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Tobias Merriweather. And that may seem crazy because we've talked about, oh, he's going to be the guy. But at the same time, we've seen that kid catch one pass in the Notre Dame uniform. That's it. One. And so
it was an exciting pass.
Though. It was a heck of a, and he should have caught more. I mean, you and I talked about that. If Drew Pine gets that seam route to him against Syracuse sooner on time, that's a touchdown. Yeah. And, so it's not – there was a couple routes against Clemson. He ran a deep over against Clemson where he's wide open, but the pressure got to the quarterback. So, I mean – but at the same time, it's like, okay, but I want to – at some point, I need to see him – if I'm going to be fair, I can't say – like last year, it's like, look, I hear all these great things about Jaden Thomas, but I can't get too fired up about him yet because I haven't seen him do anything yet. Yeah. Well, at least with Tobias, we've seen him run routes and get open. But we've seen him catch one pass. At some point in time, it'd be nice to see him kind of go out in the spring game and do something. And that's what kind of got us a little fired up about Jaden Thomas last year was like, okay, I keep hearing how good Jaden Thomas is, but I've never seen him do anything. And then he comes out in the game last year, he has like that reverse where he like jukes Ramon Henderson. And you're like, okay, I see what they're talking about now. That's where I am with Tobias this spring is I want to see Tobias kind of go out there, get a couple deep balls or, make a couple grabs and, make some plays. And I mean, we've seen him do it in practice. We've seen him make plays in practice, but I want to see him do it on the stadium just so it can be like, because like I said earlier, some people are just looking for confirmation. Well, that's where I'm at receiver. I'm not there at quarterback. I'm there at receiver. I have my opinion about who Tobias Merriweather is going to be. With Deion Colesy, I could make the same argument, Ryan, but I feel like we kind of saw Deion playing like he's capable of in flashes last year. I thought, if Deion plays against everybody like he played against USC, you got a pretty good football player. Right. Yep. And so now it's about, okay, I'd like to see him do well. That's going to be a good thing. But if I can only pick one guy, I'm going to go with Tobias. I'm going to go with Tobias Merriweather. I just think that's the one for me that just, man, I really hope this kid can step up and be legit for them. And I'd love to see, just give me a taste, just give me a little bit of a taste. Cause like I said, if talk about Deion, right. But, Deion had, regular season ended with 75 yards. My point is if Deion goes out there and does that for an entire season, let's say the Notre Dame plays 13 games, that gives him 975 yards, on the season and 30 some catches. So we've seen Deion have that chance for a whole game. Tobias had that one big play in one game. Yeah. I want to see him do it, man. I want to see him do it.
Man, and it was so difficult for me to pick one in this. So I feel like I'm going to cheat like you a little bit. I'm going to pick a couple different headlines because, I mean, Brian, like I want to see Deion Colesy because I think one interesting, I hope, depending on how the draft goes for this game, I hope I get to see some Deion Colesy versus Benjamin Morrison in the boundary, man. Like that's I want to see that matchup. Like that matchup for me, that might be one of my favorite matchups to watch if that is one that we get.
Ryan, if we were doing that segment of the show or and we should have done that, honestly, we should have thought of that. That'd have been a really cool thing to discuss.
And maybe
if we're talking about one matchup, that's the one that's the one I want to see because Cam Hart's probably not playing in the spring game. Yep. So we're not going to see him going against Tobias a whole lot, right? But that matchup there is going to be fun to watch. Really fun to watch. And
I'm high on Deion Colesy, obviously. So I would love to see the back and forth. How do you do against a preseason All-American, in the boundary? Just had 6 interceptions. I would love to see that matchup. I also would love to see Chris Tyree and see what this looks like. You're not going to get the full scope because you're not going to throw out everything in a spring game, right? But I want to see him generally. just run routes. Like, is it natural at all? Is it coming along? What does it look like? I don't know what to expect from him. I've seen the clips. I've seen the practice, the practice film that's been available through the Notre Dame media department. I've seen those things, but seeing it in your eyes is a completely different animal, as we know, right? So I would love to see Chris Tyree. And then my other big conversation piece, Brian, is this more of like a battle, I guess, is which freshman wide receiver is the most impressive during this game? Because we have Jaden Greathouse, you have Rico Flores Jr., you have Braylon James. Which one of them shows out and is the guy during that game? Like,
I hope we're debating which freshman had the best game. That'd be a lot of fun.
It would be, really.
That'd be a lot of fun. These kids are really good.
What if let's say Jaden catches 4 passes, looks good. Rico catches 4 to 5 passes, looks good. And then Braylon James just snaps off like a 50-yard touchdown on a double move. Like, I just love to see some type of performance like that when we're talking about which one was most impressive, because they were all impressive. Like, I would love that type of conversation.
I would too. I would too.
And they're all going to have opportunities to play this year now, right? Because you're talking about Caleb Smith retiring, talking about Lorenzo Styles playing a little bit on the defense side of the ball. Maybe that's a full-time transition. We'll see.
Well,
but someone's going to be pressed.
A couple things about that too, Ryan. I think the receiver's going to play a ton. I think we're going to see Matt Salerno play a ton. I think we're going to see a lot of those kids. So we're going to see Jack Polian in this game. The reason why is because they have 2 healthy running backs and 2 healthy tight ends, or 3 healthy tight ends. That's it. Right. And so that's partly why I think this is going to be a lot of passing in this scrimmage, not a ton of running, is because of that. And, they had a lot of running in the spring game. I mean, in the spring scrimmage Saturday. I think this is going to be more fun. So and I think it's a chance to let those kids go out and have some fun, because look, fans are going to put a lot into what the quarterback percentages were. I can assure you from everything I've gathered from all my sources, and this is what I was told last week, the Saturday scrimmage is the one that the most evaluations are going to be based off of. The spring game is meant to be fun. There, and again, there's things you evaluate, certainly, but it's not going to. Hey, let's take some chances. Let's have some fun. Let's throw the ball down the field. You know what I mean? And don't hide anything, because NC State's going to get 2 full games of you before you play them. Ohio State's going to get 4 games of you. Just don't get into that whole let's hide stuff. Go out there and have some fun. Throw the ball down the field and. Let these kids have some fun. That's what I'm hoping to see.
Let it rip, baby. I want to see a Jared Parker offense too, right? Yeah. So let's let it rip a little bit.
And speaking of tight ends, Ryan, I mean,
yes,
there's no wrong answer there in my opinion. I always want to see the guy that's less proven in this instance. I think we know what Mitchell Evans is going to be. I think what we saw in the bowl game, that's Mitchell Evans. He's going to be pretty good. He's a guy that can go out there and catch 3 to 6 passes a game and hurt you and make you have to defend him. And, he continues to improve as a blocker, but do they have a number 2 tight end or not? I've liked what I've seen from Holden State so far. I'd like to see him go out there this spring and sort of have a bit of a coming out party in the blue gold game. Because I feel don't you feel like Mitchell just had his coming out party in the Gator Bowl? Don't you feel like that already kind of happened?
Very, not to the biggest a degree quite to what Miles Boykin did, but like Miles Boykin-ish as far as laying the groundwork for
he
what
would have if the ball would have come to him as much as he was open, right? I mean,
true.
But he converted a 3rd and 18. He catches the game-winning touchdown. He was open up the seam route a couple times. Like, I know his numbers 3 for 39 and a touchdown aren't super sexy, but if you were at the game and you because we still haven't all 22 still hasn't been posted from that game, so you haven't been able to see it yet.
I think they posted and then took it down. I hate all 22 sometimes. Man. It's just annoying.
So, but if you were there at the game, right, you'd be like, he should have caught 2 seam routes for another 50 yards in that game.
Yeah,
I mean, where one time the quarterback missed him, another time he was the secondary read and the primary read was open, so he threw the primary read. But yeah, I thought that was the breakout for Mitchell Evans. Maybe not statistically, but he was clutch in that game. He had some good blocks in that game too, and he was pretty good. Now let's see if Holden can be that legit number 2.
Yeah, and if Mitchell averages 3 catches for 39 yards every game, he's going to catch 36 passes in a 12-game season for over 400 yards. You're going to be like, that's a good productive season after Michael Mayer leaves for the NFL, right? Like, that's good. I really am interested in Holden State, though. To your point, I agree with you 100% on this one, because that I've talked a lot about Holden State this offseason. I'm really intrigued by the profile he has to couple that with Mitchell Evans, especially with Eli Raridan coming back from an injury, Kevin Bauman still hurt, Cooper Flanagan not getting here until the summer. There's limited depth in the tight end room right now. You mentioned 3 guys that will be available, obviously, for the blue gold game. I want to see if coming into the fall, how much 12 personnel we're going to see, right? Like how much 2 tight ends are we going to see on the field? Is Holden Stace a legitimate part of this offense where you say, I can play a heavy dose of 12 personnel if I feel like it this game? Like I feel good about where he is because he can create some mismatch opportunities, I think, against linebackers, against safeties. I'd be very interested to see just what type of impact he can potentially have this year. And I feel like this can kind of give you a glimpse into it, right? Like, is he ready to be that sophomore breakouts in that second tight end in the offense? Or is maybe he a year away from being like a legitimate playmaker for this offense? Like, that's the question that I have about Holden, but I'm really high on him as a talent. So interested to see how he does. Last position on the offensive side of the football, we're just going to couple it as the offensive line, then we'll move over to the defensive side of the ball. This one's interesting, Brian, because I don't know if there's going to be like a mix and match here of like a couple starters will be on one side, a couple will be on the other, like what the offensive line
they've done in the past. They've had like the right side of, the number 1 right side with the center with the number 2 left side. Yeah. And then the number 2 left side with the number 2 center with the number 1 right side. We've seen that before.
And it's so hard as an offensive lineman to stand out because so much of it is predicated on cohesiveness, right? And working together and developing that camaraderie. And then all of a sudden you're next to a different guy than you've been working with most reps throughout the spring. So it's a little bit difficult, but I mean, for me, Brian, to kick us off, it's Billy Schrauth. I'm really going to be watching Billy, man. I'm really going to be watching him because he's been the guy we've been talking about as like that potential breakout star of the young guys this whole offseason, right? There's 2 offensive guard spots open. He's the most talented kid of the interior on the roster right now. That's the guy I want to see. I want to see if the hype is legitimate and if he can be that heir apparent to be the next star offensive lineman at Notre Dame after Joe Welton and Blake Fisher are gone. I want to see if he's that good.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't need him, Ryan. I don't need him to be a guy that goes out there and grades out at 95% and does all those kind of things. I just need to see a guy that goes out there and fights and competes and battles and, eliminate the mistakes a little bit. He's had, I mean, that guy, him and Andrew Kristofic and the other guards have had just the kitchen sink thrown at him this spring with just the crazy, blitz emphasis that they're doing. And so I just boy, I tell you what, I'd like to see him finish the spring off on a good note. Because again, I feel like with Andrew Kristofic, we kind of know who he is, right? I mean, now maybe he gets better, but we know he is. He's a solid, reliable player. We know who Zeke is. We know what Joe Walt is. Blake Fisher, I mean, if he just goes out there and dominates, that'd be fun to watch. But it's like I kind of expect him to have a big year, so I'm not really. Sure. It's kind of like Jaden Thomas. Like I just will be paying zero attention to Jaden Thomas because I just. Of all the receivers, that's the one known for me. That's the one I'm just the least worried about. Like, Jaden's going to do what Jaden does. I'm not worried about that. And that may come across as disrespectful, but it's the complete opposite of it. It's just how often do you hear me talk about Joe Walt? Joe Walt's going to be Joe Walt, man. He's good to go, right? And that's kind of how I feel about Jaden and Blake Fisher, to be honest with you, is I just want to see the young guys. I want to see the guys that we don't know as much about, that we're not as sure of, that maybe have some talent. And Billy Schrauth is the Tobias Merriweather of the offensive line. Super talented, has a chance to be a star, but is he ready to be that guy now, or is he going to need a little bit more time to, cook in the oven a little bit? We're going to find that out here in a few months, but I'd like to get a little taste of that this spring.
Yep, I think it's definitely the unknown that you're searching for. I really think. I mean, I'm also going to have my eyes obviously on some of the other young guards that are going to get in there, right? Like the Rocco Spindlers of the world, like the Ty Chans. Interested to see what Emil Wagner looks like working in, with that second team as an offensive tackle. Like just some of the young guys I'm really excited about. But I think it all starts with Billy because you're projecting Billy Schrauth to be a starting offensive lineman for the University of Notre Dame this year, right? So a little bit of an early preview of what does that look like? And so I'll definitely be having my eyes glued to that. We're going to move over to the defensive side of the ball. But before we do, if you're listening live with us, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, 5-star reviews on your favorite podcast platform if you're listening to us after the live video. And as always, go Irish. All right, Brian, let's go over to the defensive side of the football. We'll start in a spot that I think had some of the biggest question marks entering this offseason, and that was the interior defensive line. I think that's a good place to start, right? Yeah. So Howard Cross, Riley Mills, the assumed starters. But you have some young guys, the Jason Onyes of the world, mixing in and having big springs. Like for you, who is the guy that you're most excited to watch this blue and gold game from the interior defensive line?
It's Jason Onye, very easily Jason Onye. I mean, there's other guys I would like to see I'd like to see Tyson Ford end the spring off on a good note. You know, he's flashed upside, but it's just got to get way more consistent. And I don't know if he's ready yet, that kind of thing. But, you know, Donovan Hines has shown some really good moments, and Gabriel Rubio's getting better. You know, he's stronger now. He's getting better. But but with Gabriel Rubio, it's like kind of we know he's going to be part of the rotation, right? We know Howard Cross and Howard Cross had a really good spring as well. But we know Howard Cross, when he's healthy, he's a pretty good football player. Is Jason Onye going to seriously be a guy that can help them this year at defensive tackle? And I'll tell you, Ryan, the kid looks like $1 million, man. I got a picture that my wife took of him, you know, because my wife does photography for Irish Breakdown, and she took a photo of him from the spring, and I've got to find it because it's just like that kid does not look like a defensive tackle. Like he's a legit 290 pounds because he is really thick, but he is ripped up, dude, and it's just kind of like, man, this kid's got a chance to be I got the picture a little bit. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen, but this is a photo that my wife took of Jason during the spring, and I'm just like, this cat looks a little different than a lot of the other guys. Let me just pull it up here real quick, Ryan. But you know, the thing about him is he's got all the tools that we talk about wanting to look for in a defensive lineman, right? I mean, he's got explosiveness athletically, he's got length, he's powerful. He's a guy that's got playmaking potential. It's all the things that you're looking for in a defensive lineman. And you just say, like, look at that. He's literally got like a borderline six-pack as a defensive tackle, you know, and he's very muscular, very defined, very built, and
that's what I used to look like.
Yeah,
I used to look like that one time.
When you created yourself on NCAA Dynasty, yes, you're correct. That's exactly how you look like on that. But you know, he's got a chance that if the breakout we've seen this spring is real, and the reality is, Ryan, not every kid that has a big spring carries it into the fall. That's just the reality of college football. And that's true for Notre Dame and Georgia and Alabama and everybody. It just happens. You hope it doesn't, and you hope it's not Jason Onye, because if the spring breakout is, and now again, he's got to be more consistent with his execution of his assignments and things like that. But if the spring breakout is real, and we see that in the blue gold game, and he carries it into the fall, that kid's got a chance to be a very important piece to an improved defensive line. Because the one thing I expect this year is if he's a breakout, this is going to be a bigger defensive line. Now, there's not going to be anybody as big as Chris Smith, but overall, they're going to be much bigger. Gabriel Rubio's over 300 pounds now. Last year, Gabriel Rubio and Chris Smith were the only guys over 290 pounds in the rotation. If you look at the 3 deep, that was it. Jacob Lacey was 285, and then he left. Howard Cross is undersized. Jason Adamiola on his best, most maxed out day was 285 pounds. And he spent more time in the 270s than he spent at 285 pounds. You know, and you just kind of go into that depth chart. Now it's like there's only really one guy right now in the top 5 that's under 290 pounds, and that's Howard Cross. You know, Riley Mills is over 290. Jason Onye is over 290. Gabriel Rubio is over 300 now. And you say, boy, if these guys are legit and ready to help you out, boy, man, all of a sudden you got bigger, you got more athletic, and he's made a lot of plays in the football this spring. You hope that can continue moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he's that guy in the blue gold game, because it's a taste, right? It's just a taste, but it's really his first action of being able to go out there and put the pads on with tens of thousands of fans in the stadium looking at him, and how does he respond to that? I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I remember last year at spring ball when I got out there, Brian, like my eyes were drawn to Jason Onye because I'm like, that guy is a long, athletic-looking interior defensive lineman. Like, he looks the part, right? Like, he has the baseline to build off of. He has that foundation. And that's
Ryan,
exciting.
I'm interrupting you because here's the thing I want you to talk about.
Yeah.
We don't know if they can play football yet. I was having a conversation with somebody last night about this. We don't know if they can play football yet. But the one thing this defensive line has a lot more of on it now than it did even 2 years ago is there's a lot more dudes that look the part. A lot more that look the part. Onye, Rubio, Devin Houston.
Yeah. Tyson
Ford.
Yeah.
Javante Jean-Baptiste. Alexander Ahrensberger. Jordan Patelho looks like a dude. Josh Burnham is the most looks like a dude guy they have. The two most looks like a dude guys on the defensive line are Jason Onye and Josh Burnham. I mean, just like, okay, that guy looks like what you'd expect to see at Alabama. Now we're going to find out they can play like guys that you see at Alabama and Georgia. And that's why Jason Onye. And, I mean, who's your guy, Ryan? Is it Onye?
It was going to be a combination of Onye and Tyson Ford was going to be my answer because I want to see the young guys, right? Like it's the unknowns again. Like you said, I know what Howard Cross is going to bring to the table. I'm good with that. I know what Gabriel Rubio is going to bring to the table for the most part. Like he's going to get better, but he's also one of those guys, Brian. He's probably not going to flash in a blue gold game as much because he's a run stopper, right? Like he's a nose type. He's going to be a guy that is going to clog things up. He's going to work two blockers. He's going to work double teams. Like he's going to do the dirty work inside. Jason Onye is a guy that there might be a couple reps where like it's going to shoot a gap and you're going to be like, oh, that's interesting. Tyson Ford's the same way as a former defensive end that is transitioning inside. Maybe he splits a gap one play, makes a big tackle flush. You're like, oh, okay, Tyson. I see you, brother. I see you. So it's the young guys for me for sure. I'm also sort of interested in seeing Riley Mills full-time inside and see what it looks like. Like, is he more comfortable? Is he ready to be that playmaker? I think you get a little taste of that. But for me, it's the young guys, man. I really want to see what Tyson Ford and Jason Onye can bring to the table. Absolutely.
Yeah. If Tyson Ford can kind of grow up as a player, and when I say grow up for Tyson Ford, I'm talking about as a player. So don't anyone take that as like he's some immature kid. I'm talking about as a player. So it's a term that you use as a coach to discuss your game's maturity, meaning consistency, your technique, your ability to finish. It's just your polish essentially as a player. And so I want to see him, if he can grow up as a player between now and the season, and now all of a sudden you throw him into the mix as well as part of a 5 to 6 man rotation. And honestly, Ryan, if you would have said Donovan Heinisch, I would have not argued with you on that one either. I'm very curious to see if Donovan is ready to help this year or not. He may still be a year away, but that dude's making that decision of being a year away a little challenging right now because he flashes as well. But here's the big thing here's a word that I'm using a ton this spring with the defensive lineman: flash. That's code for potential. And as we've always said, potential is a great thing to discuss in the offseason, but you don't win on Saturdays with potential. You win on Saturdays with production. And that's the difference. And production comes from consistency. Consistency of effort, consistency of focus, consistency of execution. And when I talk about what I want to see from Jason Onye and Tyson Ford, and I'll have exactly the same conversation when we get to end, it's that. It's like if you can flash a couple plays, it's great. It's better than nothing. Yeah. But now it's like, okay, now let's do that. Let's do that often. Let's do that play after play.
And I know we're interested to see how the defensive line just in general develops over the next, off season and into the future of Notre Dame football, right? But I'll say this, Brian, especially when you get that 2023 class in with Boubacar and Armel Mukam, there's going to be a lot of guys that look like they could play SEC ball in that Notre Dame room, man. There's going to be a lot of guys. Like if I dropped Jason Onye into Tuscaloosa right now and threw an Alabama jersey on him and you just walked in practice and saw him there, you'd be like, yeah, that dude looks like he belongs. You could do the same thing with Armel Mukam. You could do the same with Boubacar Traore. You could do the same thing with Joshua Burnham. Like what's the big difference between Joshua Burnham and Drew Sanders that was at Alabama and transferred to Arkansas? Like what's the big difference? There's really not. Yeah. It's just about playing. It's about maturation, development. So that's what we're looking for out of this team. But you hit a perfect segue here, man. Let's go to the defensive ends. Let's go to the edge here. Man, talking it's Vipers, talking strong side
ends. Yeah. Ryan, there's one dude for me, and you know who it's going to be, dude. You know exactly where I'm going with this one. It's Josh Burnham.
It's been consistent too.
We'll put the intel out because I don't mind sharing the intel that we have on the board if it's a few days after it's put up. But an intel piece that I put up this weekend was, because I'm just gathering little nuggets. I'm going to have another intel piece up later today. I'm going to do it after the show is over, where I've talked to some people that have been at practices that are not Notre Dame people, like not a coach and all, just other people that have been at practices and kind of getting their thoughts. And I've now heard from a couple different sources something very interesting about Al Washington that I'm going to put on the board, right? And I haven't even told you about it yet, but we did put something on the board of Josh Burnham. And the thing that we talked about in the spring when we saw him in practice, Ryan, was, I see the athleticism in drills, but then he gets out there and he's going through one-on-ones and team. And it's just like he's just not letting it rip. It just, you can tell he's thinking. He's just not sure. Okay, what move do I do here? What's my counter? And and you just didn't see him let it rip. Well, according to the intel that I got, Josh really is letting it go in the last couple workouts, to the point where I've had a couple people tell me he's even getting some work with the ones in the rotation. Now, that could also partly be because now that's late in spring, they're winding down, taking some of the veteran, snaps off of some of the veterans. I think that's part of it as well. But I was told he was the D-line MVP of the scrimmage. He had like 2.5 sacks, 3 sacks, or something, like 3 sacks, I think is what I was told, like 5 tackles or something like that. Like, he really had some really good. Now, again, that's going against the 2s and 3s, but I mean, when you're dominating the 2s and the 3s, that's how you earn your shot to go against the 1s, right? And so the phrase that I was told by a couple folks is like, the hope and the excitement at Notre Dame is, did the light go on a little sooner than we expected for Josh? Because like, it can be frustrating when you see a kid that talented not really break out. But when we had the sources like in the middle of spring, I didn't put it in that middle of the spring update, but I asked about Josh, and I'm like, look, man, we think he's going to be a great player. He's just not ready yet. He's just not, the position's not natural to him yet. We love his athleticism. We love the potential. He redshirted last year, still has 4 years left. We're all good. We're not in a rush. We still think the world of him. He's not ready yet. Well, then a week and a half later, all of a sudden, the switch goes on for Josh a little bit. And then he gets a little bit of confidence. And then that confidence leads to, hey, I can do this. Yep. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you've got a confident, Josh Burnham. Good luck with that, And I think the other thing too that's going to help him is being in a position group with Jordan Patelho and Junior Tuihalamaka is really good for Josh, because those are 2 motors that are running hot a lot, and it's an example for, hey man, just let it go. Is Jordan Patelho sometimes going to line up and say, I don't know what move I should use here, so I'm just going to freaking line up and outrun this guy to the edge. All good, right? Okay, Josh, you can do that too, brother. You just let her rip, man. And the counter's like, I'm using this move because I'm going to set up my next move. All of that stuff that Josh is just in the infancy stage. The kid was a quarterback and a middle linebacker in high school. Never played off the edge like this. And when he blitzed in high school, it was right up the middle. He wasn't a guy that would line up on the edge like Jalen Snead did. So I want to see that carried into the blue gold game.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. Because if he can do that, and all of a sudden you got Patelho, Tuihalamaka, and Burnham and Jalen Snead all showing the ability to get after the quarterback. Oh my goodness, man. I'm sorry. I'm starting to get fired up. I really am. But we need to see it, right, Ryan? And that's the thing, is like, I'm hearing it, but I need to see it, because I don't trust anybody's eyes more than my own, nor should anyone else. Yeah. Right? If you're in this business and you don't trust your own eyes, now that doesn't mean someone you respect tells you something different. You know what your response is? Go watch it again and be open-minded to it. But then it's still your eyes have got to tell you, yeah, I'm changing my mind or not. Right. And, so you hear it about him and it excites you. And you and I loved his high school film. I had him as a top 100 player, borderline top 50 guy with a 5-star upside. Yep. The question is, where's he going to play? Because he was more of just a football player in high school. And if the light has truly gone on for Josh Burnham, man, oh man, this is going to be a fun year.
That's why this projection thing is so tough sometimes. This is like high school, college, even the NFL. Most players, Brian, do have that moment where the light switch comes on, right? Mm-hmm. But not everybody's the same. Some guys, it happens when they're a freshman. Some guys, it happens when you're a sophomore. Some guys, it doesn't happen until you're a 5th-year senior. Like, you never know. I mean, like Asmar Bilal, like the light switch kind of came on when he was a redshirt senior. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
5th year, 5th year freaking guy. I mean, I remember going into that 2019 season, Ryan, and I'll say it. I'll own it when I'm wrong. And I'm like, they're in trouble. Yeah. Drew White's a nice, solid middle linebacker, but he's limited. I think Owusu Koromoa's got a shot to be really good at Rover, but we had never really seen him. He'd been hurt his first 2 years. Well, he redshirted as a freshman, then got hurt as a sophomore against Michigan in the opener in 2018. Yep. And I'm thinking, and Asmar Bilal's your will, which is your top linebacker position in this defense. Are you kidding me? You're screwed. Yeah. It took me like one whole game to change my mind on that. Like when I watched him against Louisville, I was like, that's not the kid that we've seen the last 4 years.
Who's that kid?
Who's that really ripped up athletic guy that's making great reads and flying to the ball and taking
Right.
proper out. Like there was one play. It was just a little play. He didn't make the play. I think it was Louisville. It's first or second game. I think it was Louisville in the opener. And they're running some kind of jet sweep, and he just shoots outside and explodes outside and blows up the lead blocker and just forces the run inside. And Drew White, I think, cleaned it up. You're thinking he didn't make the play, but he made the play. Like he didn't make the play. You don't look at the stat sheet like, oh, wow, what a great play by Osmar Bilal. You're like, hey, look, Drew White, tackle for loss. No, that play doesn't happen if Osmar doesn't do his job. And in the past, a perfect example, go back a couple years earlier. Remember that jet sweep against Georgia? I believe on that particular play, I believe it was Osmar jumping inside and getting sucked in that jump. I think that was the play. It was a play like that, but I thought it was the Osmar in the 2017, that DeAndre Swift jet sweep. And so, like you said, Ryan, the light went on. David Bruton was that way at Notre Dame. David Bruton was a very mediocre safety, but was a really good special teams player his entire career at Notre Dame. And this last year, just the light went on. Harrison Smith, looked lost as a linebacker, moves to safety, light goes on, All-American, should have been on All-American anyway, and a first-round draft pick. So, yeah, I'm excited to see if Josh Burnham's light goes on now or if we're still a ways away from that. But it's going to go on at some point in time, Ryan. I just hope. I'm greedy, man. All right, I'm selfish. I'm greedy and selfish. Man. I want to see it now.
Happens for every player at different times, man. It's hard to predict sometimes. But to your point, hopefully it comes around sooner than later because he could be a very impactful player. I'm interested to see Jordan Botelho, Brian, and I know we've seen him for a couple of years. We've seen the flashes, but he's expected to have more of a full-time role this year, obviously, right? And there's a lot of people, players and coaches that I know are very high on what Jordan Botelho could do for Notre Dame this year from a production perspective. So haven't seen it this spring with my own eyes. I've heard from you that he looks twitchy, looks explosive, looks the part. Cool.
Fine. Yeah.
They've been doing a lot of pressure.
Yeah. They've been doing a lot of blitz stuff, Ryan. And in a lot of their blitzes, the Vipers kind of take over the tackle to open up this, slant inside to open up this. So there hasn't been a ton of just pure rushes from him in the spring. So, but athletically, he looks great. I mean, he looks great. And
I hope it's like one of those similar matchup conversations that we had earlier in the offensive segment. I really hope we get a little bit of Jordan Botelho versus Joe Alt in this game. I really hope I get to see him against Joe Alt. I just want to see him pin his ears back and see what he can do against an All-American. Even against Blake Fisher too, but like Joe Alt versus Jordan Botelho, I want to see that smoke. I want to see what happens there because Jordan Botelho's coming off a game where he had 2 sacks and 10 hurries. He was really good against South Carolina as a pass rusher. Can he do that against a legitimate potential top 10 pick next year? That's a different conversation. So I'm excited to see Jordan Botelho against these offensive linemen. I think that could be a really interesting conversation piece.
We'll have a conversation about another guy here when we get into the next section. But I'm there. Linebacker Ryan. Let's let you start this one. I wanted you to start this one.
Yeah.
When you look at the linebackers, there's a lot of good options we can go with. What's the linebacker that you're hoping when the spring game is over, you're like, okay, that's the guy everybody's talking about?
I was thinking about Nolan Ziegler, but I really want to see Drake Bowen, man. I'm excited. The one practice recap we did where you were talking heavily, I think you were on with Vince, and I was able to pull in and listen to that one. And you guys were just lauding over how good Drake Bowen looked in that practice specifically.
Yeah.
I want to see it, man, because I keep coming back to who is the Mike linebacker after JD Bertrand? Who's the heir apparent? Who's the guy that could be that impactful next level middle linebacker, a playmaker from that position? I think it could be Drake Bowen, man. And you're hearing he looks really good athletically. And I saw him down in San Antonio. I thought he looked fantastic throughout the week of practice. The game wasn't quite as good, but I want to see just how good he looks as a true freshman in that system, how quickly he's acclimating, how quickly he's really getting that defense down and seeing him fly around, man, because I think that we have really, as a fan base, Brian, recruiting wise, people were so excited about Drake Bowen, and I feel like they soured on him at the end because they saw the All-American Bowl game, All-American
just
Bowl
ignored what he did the entire week of practice.
Right.
And again, if you talk to people that were at the game, they're saying he's trailing some guy. It looks like he gets smoked on a pass play. And what you found out after was no, that wasn't his fault. You know, that wasn't his guy. He recognized that there was a blown coverage and was trying to rectify it. But that's just how people are, man. You know, I mean, that's just how people are. It is. I understand it. But yeah, it's going to be. And Jaden Alsbury's another one. I mean, those two kids look the part, Ryan. I mean, they're not ready yet. right? They're not ready. They're 12 practices in. We saw them last practice we saw was like 9. They're not ready yet. But when you want to see, okay, like here's when you get worried about it because I remember the first time people ask, who's the guy you missed the most on? What's biggest misses you had as an evaluator? And I would say the absolute big, like Javon McKinley wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be, but he's still a good player, and had he not had some injuries, I think would have been an even better player. But he wasn't as good in college as I thought he was going to be. But he was still a starter on a playoff team, leading receiver on a playoff team, right? Like he wasn't a bust by any stretch. Josh Badelho, I was way off on. And
Josh
Barajas. Yes, I said, what did I say? Josh Patelho? I don't even know who the heck that is. Josh Barajas is the guy I was most wrong on. And I knew it immediately. Because like when I saw the film, I saw a kid that had some twitch, a kid who could rush quarterback. And the first practice I saw him at Notre Dame, he looked chunky, he looked out of shape, and he looked like he wasn't athletic at all. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I missed so bad on this kid. Like, I mean, first practice. Yeah. You're just like, this kid does not belong here. I don't know if it was like he had a bad offseason. I don't know what the heck happened. I was like, that's not the dude that I saw on film, or the guy that I saw in the Army All-American game who looked really good. I know what happened. I was like, I missed on this kid bad. He didn't look like he belonged. Then you see those freshmen that are like, dude, this kid's not ready to help me right now, but oh my gosh, I love watching that kid run around. And a conversation I was having last night with a guy was that there's so much of that in the freshman and sophomore classes. I don't know if these kids are going to be ready to play yet. Like, I don't know if they're going to be ready to help this team. I don't know. But when you look on the front seven, Ryan, and you look at Nolan Ziegler, Jalen Sneed, Drake Bowen, Jaden Alsbury, even Preston Zinter at times, but he's still thinking so much. But you look at Josh Burnham, and you look at Tyson Ford and Aiden Gobira and Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray before his injury. And you're thinking, and the fastest dude of all of them is not even on campus yet, in Micah Bell. You start saying to yourself, that's the Marcus Freeman impact right there. And we haven't even seen Boubacar yet. And Armand, the athleticism and the explosiveness athletically that this defense has added since Marcus Freeman was hired as the defensive coordinator stands out.
It's different, man. It's different.
Now, are those kids ready to play a bunch yet? Don't know.
Yeah.
There's only one for sure that I know is ready to play, and that's the guy that's already been a freshman All-American. We'll see how the rest of them do. But you start getting fired up, man, when you're just like, man, these guys move different. They look different. Jaden Alsbury's not ready physically yet to be a linebacker. I think he can help you on special teams right now. But you watch him run around, you're like, this cat's different.
Yep.
When Matt Bayless is going to be the key to Jaden Alsbury being an All-American, because the God-given ability is there. Now, Jaden Alsbury has got to put in the work, but I've never heard a question about whether he's going to work or not. Never heard a question about that.
He's going to grind. Yeah.
But it's just like, you get that body built up because this cat's different. Drake Bowen's another one. Like this cat moves different. Nolan Ziegler, to me, is the twitchiest athlete they have at linebacker, in my opinion. When you come like pound for pound, in my view. I mean, I'd be willing to say I'd like to see a race between him and Jalen Sneed, because I don't know who would win that one. And he's 20 plus pounds heavier than Jalen Sneed. But then you talk about Jalen Sneed and just the twitchiness that he brings. I mean, so there's so many linebackers you could go with, Ryan. But for me, it's the two sophomores. That's ultimately my answer. And it's Nolan Ziegler as an every down linebacker, and I want to see how Jalen looks as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Because those cats just move different. And again, this is coming from a dude, or really two dudes, who don't buy into the whole, the veterans aren't good athletes. We don't buy into that. Jack Kaiser has zero athleticism limitations. Jack Kaiser's limitations are size.
Yeah.
That's it. Jack doesn't lack Jack runs really well. JD runs really well. JD lacks length and consistency at times. Maris issues have zero to do with athleticism. So we're not people who buy into the whole, get the better athletes on the field. But these cats are just different, Ryan. They're just different. And that's exciting. That's really exciting. And I want to see that. But Nolan and Jalen, to me, are the most physically ready to play. And I want to see what they look like. And I want to see them put a little bit of pressure on the veterans, because what do you say this all the time, Ryan? Competition is a very healthy thing
100%.
For veterans. If you know, hey, man, I'm a fifth-year senior and I'm a captain, but if I don't step it up, this cat number 42 wants my job like now.
Yep.
He's not ready to wait for me to graduate. He wants it now. He wants to send me into an early retirement. I got to bring it today. That's a great thing for a football team. Because either A, he doesn't answer the bell and gets beat out, or B, he answers the bell and now he's even better. And so if Nolan and Jalen can come out there and ball on Saturday, hey, you've been put on notice. Hey, 27, we love you. You're a team captain. You're incredibly invaluable, but you're on notice. You better make plays. Hey, Jack, you've had a great spring, Jack Kaiser. Great spring, by the way. Jack Kaiser's had a great spring, but you're on notice. You better keep that up. There can be no let up because this cat number 17 and this cat 42 and this cat number 23 and this cat number 34, these cats want your job. They're not willing to wait for next year. And same thing with number 8. You're definitely on notice, man. Now you're doing the whole Pedro Serrano snake in the thing in Major League, like hoping that you don't got a red sticker in your locker when you get back over there. You know what I mean? Like you better be ready to bring it because these young bucks are hungry and they're working and they want your job. And I want to see that in the Blue Gold game. Man.
I might watch.
I'm just getting fired up talking about it, man.
I might watch Major League later, man. Look at that score board now, Grasshopper. Yes. I want to watch that now. That's a fantastic movie.
Great movie, man. Great. That was Major League 2. That was
Major League 2, that quote. Yeah. Major League 1 was great. Major League 2 was solid. Major League 3 was awful. That's kind of
that one. Is that the Back to the Minors one?
Back to the Minors.
That was horrible.
Where they have Rube Baker and then some no-name pitcher that I don't even know. Yeah.
There was one good part about that movie that I won't say publicly, but there was one good part about that movie. I'll tell you about later. Yeah, Major League 1 is one of the most quotable movies ever.
Oh, yeah, man.
Tremendous movie.
Man.
But yeah, I'm excited to see these young bucks, man. And that's what you talk about the future of Notre Dame. Look, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of spring balls. I've seen a lot of teams. And when you start seeing cats that just don't look like what you're used to looking like, that's when you start getting excited. That's just, man, this cat just does not look like what I'm used to seeing at this position. You start getting fired up about it.
Now I got Major League quotes coming to my mind, man. I'm just you might run like Hayes, but you hit like.
Yeah. Are you telling me Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball? That might have been
Eddie Harris.
Yeah.
What is that on you? Vagisil.
Yeah. I don't got an arm like yours. I got to put,
Oh man,
that's a great movie.
I love that movie. Well, Brian, I feel bad because we're segueing into a position that my answer for cornerback in this game was going to be Christian Gray, but now he's got the knee scope this spring, so he's not going to be available for the rest of the spring. He's not going to be there.
Be my answer, even if
really interesting. Well, I guess my default for me, like I was thinking about Chance Tucker, but I want to see Benjamin Morrison, take that jump from freshman to sophomore and go against Deion Colsey and Tobias Merriweather, and I just want to see those matchups. So I'll defer to Benjamin Morrison. It's not an unknown commodity, but there still is. I think people are now just. What we saw from Benjamin Morrison last year was as good as Benjamin Morrison's going to be. And I'm just like, guys, there's still a step there, man, that he can take this offseason to be an impactful football player in 2023. So let me see a little bit more of that next level from a guy like Benjamin Morrison.
Honestly, Ryan, for me, the answer is kind of easy. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jaden Mickey. And he's kind of the forgotten man a little bit. Where he's now, even as a sophomore, kind of in that middle child thing, right? Like, you've got Cam Hart, who's the veteran, and Benjamin. He's like him and Benjamin Morrison are like they're twins, right? And then they're the middle twins, but one of them's like shown an early gift, and so like that's the one you're taking to camp, and and then there's that other twin that just kind of like you forget about. And then the new kids have come along, and Christian Gray and Micah Bell, and you've got your new babies that require all your attention. And so you're just not hearing a lot about Jaden Mickey. I've liked what I've seen from Jaden this spring so far. And I think Jaden Mickey still has the potential to be a starting cornerback at the University of Notre Dame. Now we're just assuming that Christian Gray is going to take that job or whatever. And he's got every chance to because Christian Gray is really, really good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jaden Mickey's competed his butt off this spring. He really has. And going against the big guys that he's gone against Deion, going against Tobias, I think has really helped make him a better player. I think the improved coaching that the receivers are getting from Chancey Stuckey is helping all the corners, but nobody more than Jaden Mickey because he's being forced to be more patient. And that's the biggest takeaway I've seen from Jaden is that patience. And he's always – look, Jaden Mickey at least once a year is going to get burned on a double move for a touchdown. Just just embrace it. It's going to
his
happen.
style. It's his style.
But he's also now going to start making a lot more plays because he's still aggressive, but he's more patient with it.
Yep.
And that's the difference between getting beat for a touchdown and breaking up a pass or things like that. It's just, and so that's what I'm excited to see. I'm really looking forward, because if Jaden can have sort of a sophomore jump, all of a sudden your outside cornerback rotation is looking really good. And he's got more God-given ability than Clarence Lewis. And if Jaden steps up when Cam Hart gets back, now you feel a lot better about maybe having Clarence Lewis focus more on just the nickel, or potentially moving to safety if you're not able to get a portal guy. But you allow Clarence to zero in on a specific spot and maximize that to make him better. And now all of a sudden you feel great about it. So Jaden Mickey's the guy for me. I'm really looking forward to seeing if what kind of game Jaden can have in this game. Very much so.
That's an interesting one. I think that fight for cornerback 3, because obviously as of now, Clarence Lewis is still there, so he's going to be in that conversation. But interesting if a guy like a Jaden Mickey could fight for that spot, or Chance Tucker.
Chance Tucker's another one. Yeah, exactly. They need, like, I'm looking at Jaden because I feel like he's been kind of written off.
Yeah.
Chance Tucker's never been written in from fans. Like, Jaden got a chance. He didn't play great last year. But if Chance Tucker's that guy too, it's the same end story. And they're both good players who have continued to improve this spring. I look at Jaden Mickey and I'm like, man, that you also look at kind of what he's going through right now as a young man.
Yeah.
And you say, boy, this kid is answering the bell every single day, when most of us would have been like, Coach, man, I gotta bow out and go home and be with my mom. You know what I mean? But he's staying there competing and battling, and he's a teenager going through something like scary.
Yep.
And to see him, and he's got to go take classes at the University of Notre Dame, and so you just say, this kid's got a little something different. This kid's got a little something. And when you watch him on the field run, you wouldn't know that all that stuff is going on. And that takes a special young man. And so it's almost the point where not only am I looking forward to seeing him from a football evaluation standpoint, but as a human being, kind of rooting for him. And I try not to do that a whole lot, because hey, look, let the best man play and all that. But it's just kind of like, I want to see the kid thrive, because it's a great story, and just shows that what young people can do when they're challenged to be the best version of themselves. Absolutely. And life is challenging Jaden Mickey to be the best version of himself. And so far, young man stepped up to the plate. And that's just a great story. And he's a good football player.
As if being a student at the University of Notre Dame wasn't hard enough, imagine being a student athlete at the University of Notre Dame and going through what he's going through. Right. That's a lot, man. It's a lot. And
handling it, from everything that we can tell, handling it like a grown up, just speaks volumes. It also says a lot about his parents and the kind of young man that they've raised him to be. I mean, didn't this happen by accident? And so I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him thrive. If no other reason, just that. But again, as a football player, take that aside. As a football player, he's an important piece to this outside cornerback rotation, to where if he steps up, and if and if him and Chance Tucker both emerge, now all of a sudden, if you're Mike Mickens, I don't feel bad about taking Benjamin out for 10 to 12 snaps a game.
Exactly.
Because Chance can handle it, and I can take some of the burden off of Ben against Navy and 10. You're not taking Benjamin Morrison off the field against Ohio State. But if you can take him off for 10 to 12 snaps a game in the 4 games leading up to it, and the two to three, or the 2 after before USC, you feel better about that. Same thing with Cam Hart. If I can take 10 to 15 snaps a game off of Cam Hart, or 20 snaps a game off of Cam Hart against those teams, because I'm fully confident that Jaden Mickey can go out there and handle the job, then all of a sudden I feel a lot better about the ability to rotate my guys and keep them fresh. Because now all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, your receivers aren't fresh and my guys are tired because my guys have 20 more reps onto their legs. No. My guys are working on the same rep that your guys working on. Yep. And you feel good about that. And that's a good place to be. So practically speaking, even beyond the story aspect of it, Chance and Jaden really stepping up is important to this football team. And so Jaden's the guy that I'm keying on for all the reasons I mentioned. But I want to see 18 play well too. And I thought Chance played well last spring. I thought he had a pretty good game last spring. Remember that crazy catch that Braden Lindsey made against him?
Yeah.
The falling. It was like that. There's not a dang thing Chance could have done about that. That was a great coverage. Well, he's stronger now. He's got a year more of coaching now. Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do too. If you would have picked Chance Tucker, I would have been like, yeah, okay, cool.
He was the guy I was thinking of. If I was going to pick Benjamin Morrison, I was going to pick Chance Tucker. That was going to be the guy for me personally. Safety's another interesting one, though, Brian, as we're kind of finishing up this talk, because
there aren't a lot of options.
Ben Minich is out now. Don Schuler's been out, obviously, with an injury this spring. Like, we're talking about Xavier Watts. We're talking about Ramon Henderson, pretty much. Like, that's kind of, DJ Brown, but like we know who DJ is at this point, right? As a 6th-year senior, like you know what DJ Brown is. I was thinking about Xavier Watts, but I'm actually going to go with Ramon Henderson just because I've always have had, like, I want to buy into Ramon so badly as a football player because he's really talented, man. He's got length, he's explosive, and he's made some plays in games where you're just like, man, that interception against Virginia 2 years ago, you're like, dang, brother, that was pretty impressive, right? And then he has like the blitzes last year that he made, a couple big hits. You're like, okay, like there's some tools there, but it's always been on consistency for Ramon Henderson. So a clean football game, because the last time I saw Ramon Henderson in a blue gold game, didn't look too good, man. He didn't look too great. So can Ramon Henderson have a good end to spring? Because it sounds like he was pretty up and down this spring. Can he have a positive end going into the rest of the offseason? I hope Ramon Henderson has a good end to his spring, personally.
Yes, it's important, Ryan. That's mine as well. I had to quickly check. I was on a different screen. I was like, did I forget to unmute my? It's like Ryan over there going like this, and I'm not talking. Ramon's my guy too. Look, it's probably unfair to Xavier Watts to say this.
Yeah,
but I just kind of I kind of feel like I know what he's going to be this spring or this fall. I feel and it's unfair. Way, it's like, unfair.
Yeah,
but it's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Xavier's going to ball out. I'm confident in that. What are the other guys going to do? And again, it's unfair to him because he's really only been like a full rotation safety for like 3 or 4 games. Yeah. But that's just the level of confidence I have with Xavier Watts. And I think that's the level of confidence Xavier Watts has in himself, which is partly where my confidence comes from. If they could get Ramon Henderson to be as confident and, more importantly, focused as a DJ Brown, then he's going to have a heck of a year. And all of a sudden we're talking about the 1-2 punch at safety of Xavier and Ramon being really good. And it's got the physical tools to be there. Ramon still has not shown me that he is a football player. Ramon has shown me that he's a really athletic kid that can use that athleticism to do some things on the football field. But he's not a consistent football. He doesn't look like a natural football player yet, which is partly why he oftentimes looks the best when he's blitzing, because it's just like run fast and get the quarterback, right? It's, can you do the little things correctly? Can you be where you need to be? And if he can, Ramon's got a chance to be a dude at Notre Dame. There's no doubt about that, Ryan. He's got a chance to be a dude.
Brian, that's why it's so, it's a little frustrating, honestly, because we've seen every attribute that you need out of a really good safety in flashes from Ramon. Like, you've seen the range and like that crazy interception 2 years ago against Virginia. You've seen the range on the back end. You've also seen him come downhill and lay some sticks in the run game at times. Yeah. And you've also seen him blitz.
He's not afraid to hit, Ryan. He's not. And that was honestly my biggest concern with him coming out of high school, was that right there on top. Like this is a track kid that mostly played wide receivers. You're going to really hit people. Yeah. Ramon is not afraid to hit people.
He's not.
He just doesn't always know how to properly hit people. All right, and that goes back to what we mentioned. So, and I've never heard anybody tell me he doesn't work hard. It's just that feel. Does he have that feel? Does he have that ability to focus rep after rep after rep? That's the question. Yeah, but if he's one, there's like 4 or 5 if guys in the veteran classes and younger classes where, like, if A happens, boy, and he's that guy for me in the secondary. Like, if the light goes on for Ramon, if the light goes on for Nolan Ziegler, this is where I'm at on all these positions. If the light goes on for Jason Onya at D tackle, Josh Burnham at Viper, Billy Schrouth at guard, Tobias at wide receiver, Holden Stace at tight end. If the light goes on for those guys, they're all difference makers.
Yep.
Like not just all key contributors, no, difference makers.
Yes.
And the more of those answers that get, and Jalen Sneed's another one, a linebacker, by the way.
Yeah.
That you throw in there. And it's like, if the light goes on, you're the more of those guys where the light goes on, the better you are. And if most of those guys have the light go on this year,
yep,
whew, that's going to be fun, buddy.
Yeah, man.
It's going to be fun.
I mean, there's obviously a lack of depth at safety, and you're going to most likely bring in someone this offseason from the transfer portal. But, man, because Ramon Henderson's really talented. I would say this, Brian, I don't think this is too outlandish, and we'll end the conversation in a sec, but, like, Ramon Henderson is a NFL-level athlete playing the safety position.
Yeah.
He's not that football player yet.
And body.
Right? Like, he has the talents.
And body, Ryan. I mean, he has the size. He has the athleticism. That's not the question. Does he have the instincts and the feel and the consistency of focus? That's the question. Yep. But this, again, that's different now between guys in the past. In the past, it's been like, boy, this kid's smart and he tries, but I just don't know if he has the athleticism to hang on that level. The difference now is Notre Dame has the athletes to play with these big teams, but are their athletes the football players that those teams athletes are? That's the question.
It's like him and DJ Brown are polar opposite players, right? Like they are just to illustrate your point as far as the differentiator there. But that is going to kind of do it for our little bit of preview as far as players that we have our eyes
our predictions on. Preview. And we'll do more of a what to look for tomorrow. People have asked about that. That'll be what the focus of tomorrow's show is.
Yep. So we will knock that out on Thursday, of course. Next segment, we are going to be moving to some spring surprises because we know at the end of the spring, we're going to kind of look back a little bit. We're about to do that in a second and talk a little bit about some players, some headlines that maybe we weren't expecting coming into the spring. So some spring surprises coming up. Before we transition, though, you can please just hit that like button. Subscribe to the podcast, 5-star reviews, share this podcast. Make sure to go to boards.irishbreakdown.com because like Brian said, it's going to be a nice little intel feature on the board later today for some spring intel. Make sure you go join up the message board. You'll get it before the next show where we're able to share some of that stuff with you. So make sure to sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. But that'll do it for a little bit of the primer for some breakout stars, players that we'll have our eye on for the Blue Gold game. All right, Brian. So
hold on a second, Ryan, because I want to jump in here real quick. Something I'm before we get into the surprises.
Yes,
I wanted to read something. I'm as we're doing this. I'm editing a story to publish on the website. Like you know me, Ryan. I'm always doing 3 or 4 things at a time. And here's a comment from Chancey Stuckey. You know, normally coaches are very reserved in things that they said, but he was interviewed today, and I want to read this comment that he made about the freshmen. He said, "We hit on all 3 freshmen. That was huge, and that's super rare. What's even more rare than hitting on all 3 freshmen is coaches being willing to say that." And I have been hearing this privately. If you're on the message board, you read my intel, you've pretty much heard me say they're all 3 better than advertised, all 3 of them. That's okay. But for a coach to come out and publicly say that, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For a staff that's normally really reserved when they say those kind of things is the other part of that too. So I'm fired up.
Well, and maybe a couple of those young guys might be a part of our spring surprises.
Maybe,
who knows? But,
maybe.
But Brian, let's get into some of these spring surprises. Some of the key headlines, players that, as we look back at this spring, maybe we weren't expecting. Maybe we were hopeful for, but we're a little reserved in our optimism. That's kind of the vibes that we're getting here. So start us up. What's one thing that maybe has been surprising you a little bit, kind of looking back at spring a little bit, a player, a circumstance, a position group, whatever it might be?
The big one for me, we'll go offense first, and we'll just kind of go a player at a time. The big one for me is Chris Tyree. I said to somebody, I sent a text message to someone that close to Chris yesterday, and I said, look, I'm going to be honest. I did not like this move. I thought you could do things with Chris, and I've said it, you could do things with Chris in certain packages, and he's still evolving as a wide receiver. There's still a lot of room to grow. But to see how comfortable he is and to see how bought in he is making this move gets you fired up, and I've seen some really fun things from him in the practices we've seen. I've heard things from people around the program. They've literally used two words that I've said to use Chris Tyree that just it's like amplify what I'm hearing from all my sources, including one particular source who's usually pretty pessimistic, to be completely honest with you. Like, he's a guy that I go to as the counterweight to the people who like this team's going to go 14-0 and outscore everyone by 50. Like you've got those range of sources that you talk to. This one's usually sort of my, okay, balance it out for me kind of guy. And I think that's the way you should do sourcing is okay, look, people kind of, this guy tends to be a little bit more optimistic. This guy tends to be a little more pessimistic. You put them together and you start to get a pretty good idea of it. And the guy that I talked to that's usually a little bit kind of reserved and down and pessimistic was like, can't guard him. Like, nobody on our team can guard him, and that was what you heard. And then one of the intel pieces that we had on the message board was that during the scrimmage on Saturday, the phrase I was given is Chris Tyree was on a cheat code during the spring game or during the spring scrimmage. I keep saying spring game because that was the game that meant the most to them. But when you start hearing stuff like that, Ryan, and you start thinking like the run game, like Chris Tyree's not a guy he's not Rondell Moore. He's not going to go out there and he's not T.Y. Hilton. He's not going to be like a natural receiver that's going to catch 90 balls as a pure vertical pass catcher. He's evolving there. But the things that he can do to get the football, it's just, man, it's going to be fun. I hope they use him correctly. But from everything I'm hearing in practices, they are force feeding the ball to Chris Tyree because they know they need to. And then you say, well, that's going to impact Jaden Thomas. It's going to impact Tobias Merriweather. It's going to impact Deion Colsey. It's going to impact Lorenzo Styles. It's going to impact the running game, all of that stuff. And man, you start getting fired up about what it could be if he can carry it into the fall. Because again, this is what he's done in the spring. We don't know what that's. Everything we say right now is about what we're seeing in the spring. I don't know how it's going to translate in the fall. If I was that great at, if I could make that kind of prognostication, I would be a lot wealthier right now because I'd be a pretty darn good, accurate gambler. I'm just telling you what we're hearing right now and what we've seen so far. And what I've seen so far is Chris Tyree has taken to this position really well. He's bought in, and that alone is a surprise because, I mean, you grow up playing a position, and I'm speaking from experience, and somebody says, we're going to move you. You're like, I want to move. I came here to play running back. I'm not a wide receiver, but he's bought in. And then he's doing well. And they're rewarding him with that buy-in by saying, okay, we told you we're going to get you going, and now we're going to get you going. So I'm fired up. And it's been a surprise to me to see how quickly he has adapted to that position. And again, he's only a quarter of the way through his receiver transition, barely a quarter of the way through. When you look at the number of practices from the beginning of spring to the first game, it's a little, I think like 12 or 13. So a little over 25% of the way there. And so he's like, if he's already doing that now, and he's gonna have the whole, and when I'm talking about formal practice. I'm not talking about the 100 summer workouts that they're gonna have.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You start getting pretty fired up, man, and say, okay, you add a weapon like that. Because what have you and I, since you've known me, Ryan, what have I been complaining about at receiver for Notre Dame? They just don't have that guy that you say get the ball to and let him go do something.
Yeah,
and the guy that they did have, they never used. And Braden Lindsey. And so now you got another one like that you're like, okay, this is going to be fun if they do it right. And I think this staff is a little bit more committed to doing that than maybe they were previously, to say it's okay to, and this is where I think you're going to see a little bit of the Jared Parker impact. Jared Parker's a pro style guy, but he's also more of a college guy. Yeah. His pro style is more of a college type of look, where he's going to be more willing to embrace the RPOs, more willing to embrace, hey, let's just get that ball out there to this really fast kid. Not everything has to be like designed up and all. It's just, I got this really fast kid. My guy runs a 4.3. Your guy runs a 4.6. I'm going to get him in space because your 4.6 can't run with my 4.3. And it's me not showing how smart I am, but you know what? Here's how I show how smart I am. You see that 5-something spot we put on the board against you, or that 40-something spot that we put on this team, or one of the better teams, that 30 spot. Okay, that's how I show how smart I am. I don't need to do it with scheme. I'm doing it with results, and that's something I think we're going to see more of. Now, I don't know how it's going to be overall. But I think at least in that part, that's definitely something that I believe we're seeing. Jared Parker's okay saying, look, they're going man to man. I got a 6'5" dude out there being guarded by a 5'11" guy.
Yeah.
Everybody in the stadium knows you're going to throw that ball. So they don't have anybody out there that's going to cover it. I'm okay to just throw it up. Hey, look, you're going to try to have your linebacker in space against Chris Tyree. All right, cool. I don't need to reinvent the wheel and show how I'm the next Sean McVay or Mike, Kyle Shanahan to know that I'm going to whoop your butt on that one. And I think that's how college coaches need to be. And I think Jared Parker has some of that in him. And that's something that has me a little fired up. And the greatest beneficiary of that is going to be Chris Tyree, in my opinion.
I think that is the number one answer on the offensive side of the football for me as well. Like, it's Chris Tyree. And honestly, Brian, it's a double surprise because you hit on it, right? One is that the position switch happens. Like, that would surprise me in general. I'm like, oh, okay, that legitimately happened. And then number two is how quickly he seems to be really assimilating to that role. And to be
Which you can't do it if you're not bought in, Ryan. You can't do it if you don't have complete buy-in. And I think that 100%. Speaks volumes about what kind of young man Chris Tyree is.
No doubt about it. So I'm excited to see what Chris does in that role. I'm excited to see a little glimpse of it in the blue gold game. Again, we're not going to get the full scope of what is Chris Tyree's, usage going to be in the blue gold game. But we're just not going to see that, right? But we are going to see a little bit of it. We're going to see a little taste of it. Big one for me, Brian. You talked about the 3 wide receivers to kind of open the segment, right? That they're all really showing out and they're taking that step forward. And we hit on all 3 is what Coach Stuckey says. I am a little surprised, just slightly, that Braylon James is in that conversation as far as being with those guys. I thought, in this full honesty, I thought Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores were just more college ready to go. You're going to throw them in there. They're going to be able to run routes. They're going to do the little things. And Braylon James, I thought, was going to show flashes in the spring, but you were going to see it's still a work in progress here. And not to say it isn't. Like, there's still work that needs to be done, obviously. But, I mean, the intel piece that you put up a couple weeks ago, I mean, they can't guard him, man. Like, that's just flat out what's happening right now.
Well, they have to beat him at the line. They have to beat him at the line. And that's where Braylon is struggling right now is if you've got a good corner that can – like, that's what Lorenzo Styles did to him. Like, Lorenzo Styles just came up when we talk about that one rep that Lorenzo had that was really, really good.
Yeah.
It was against Braylon because he just got in his chest and just drove him into the sideline. And so that's where Braylon still needs to work. But here's I'm going to read you the quote because I'm getting ready to publish this story. I'm getting ready to publish this. But here's the comment that he said about that Coach Stuckey said about Braylon James. He says Braylon has had the most interesting transition because he put on 15 pounds. He got here and got 15 pounds super quick, so his body this spring has been used to carrying that extra weight. He's the freakiest of them all. 6'2", runs a 4.4, 38-inch vertical jump. He's the biggest, freakiest of them all, but his body has changed so much. That's what he had to say about Braylon James.
It's nice, man. It's nice. And if Braylon, again, if like there's just a small role he could play, even in 2023, as just like a designated deep threat, or
he should have the Will Fuller role that Will had as a freshman.
Yeah.
I'm
going
to
send like 20 something yards a catch and did all
6
that
catches.
Type of stuff.
Yeah. Where you need to run a go route, you need to run a post route, you need to run a deep over route, you need to run a cross route, and you need to be able to run a hitch route. That's it. That's all I need you to do.
That's it, man.
That's it. Because if you can run a hitch, you can run a stop. If you can run a hitch, you can run a comeback. Same technique, just depth and direction. That's it.
Yep.
That's all he needs to learn right now. I don't need to run him a post corners and all. I don't need to teach him all that stuff. That's what I need you to learn. That's it. Go post, drag, cross, hitch. That's it.
And when they signed Braylon, I was on the wavelength of that kid is going to be a stud down the road, but you're probably not going to see too much of him in 2023. It's going to be like a maturation. And now leaving the spring, Brian, I'm like, as long as he carries this momentum in the offseason and he just, tightens up a few of the nuances of the game, there needs to be some sort of role. Again, like not a volume getting role, but at times, like we need to stretch the field a little bit. Braylon James, you need to get on the field now, man. Like we need you out there in this situation. So Braylon's been a very pleasant surprise for how much we've heard of him this spring compared to what I thought maybe we would.
Well, and the thing I like too, Ryan, is all of the freshmen have been the focus of the tension at different times.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that we go with Braylon, because the funny thing is, I had Braylon as my highest ranked of all the receivers. Braylon, I think, was the number 2 ranked kid in the class for me.
Yeah.
But the thing that I always said was, but I also don't think he's ready to play as ready to play as a freshman as those other guys. And I think that's an important thing to me, is you've got to get those guys kind of positioned to say, hey, are you ready to go out and really be that guy?
Sure.
And to see Braylon showing flashes of that, again, he still needs a lot of work, right? I'm not trying to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, he looks like Michael Floyd as a freshman. I am not saying that. He is not ready yet, but he's a lot closer to being ready than I thought he was going to be. But man, you just cannot teach that speed. You cannot teach that speed.
Not with
And
that length, especially.
Like mine was going to be Rico. Like my next biggest surprise is Rico. And the reason why, it's funny because as I'm editing the story, like I put down my notes. I said I had Tyree, Rico, and then my third guy. But the reason I went Rico, and then I'm reading Chancey Stuckey's quotes about Rico, and it explains exactly why Rico's my biggest surprise. It's not that Rico's a great route runner. I mean, you and I debated this. You had picked Jaden Greathouse was the best route runner of the receiving corps. I went with Rico. I'm not surprised that Rico's a really good route runner. I'm not surprised he's advanced. What surprised me, Ryan, is how big he is.
Yeah.
Like he was listed as 6 foot, like 190 something, but I'm like, he may only be 6 foot, but he looks taller than Lorenzo Styles to me. And I know Lorenzo's taller than me, and I'm 6 foot. So he looks taller than I thought he was going to be, and he's thicker. And this is what Coach Stuckey said about Rico. He said Rico's thicker. He goes way bigger than you thought. He gets here, and he has these huge tree trunk legs in his arms, and he has a little presence about him. Good size, great route runner. Attention to detail is immaculate. And then he talked about just how much he loves football and how he tests and how hard he works and all that other kind of stuff. But, I mean, you hear that and you're like, okay, like, dude's even bigger than I thought, and he's faster than I thought too. Those are the two things that have really stood out to me about Rico. I am not shocked that a kid from Folsom has the confidence to step in and say, I'm not worried about Notre Dame. Like, I mean, yeah, this is Notre Dame, but this is why I picked Notre Dame. I didn't come here to sit for 3 years. I came here to play. I want to be on the biggest stage. That's where I want to be. And I'm not afraid of competing against you.
Right. I'm playing modern day and those types of cats every single week. You know
I'm not
what I mean?
Like, I'm playing De La Salle. I'm not worried.
I'm playing De La Salle. Exactly.
I'm not worried about this. I got this. This is why I came here.
Yeah.
And so, but to see him bigger and faster than I thought, you're like, okay, goodness gracious. Like, I was just hoping the receiving corps was as good as I thought.
Yeah.
The fact that they're all ahead of where I thought they would be right now. I mean, well, Jaden Greathouse isn't as far ahead as isn't further ahead than I thought he would be. He's matched where I thought he'd be because I had the highest expectations for him as a freshman.
Sure.
So he's not a surprise for me that he's ready to go. I'll just to finish it off, I'll read what he said about Jaden as well. He goes, he's just physically ready to play. He has great ball skills, has a niftiness in and around through zones where he can get around guys, but has enough power and quickness to beat guys. His ball skills are out of control, but his basketball background and what they did at Westlake, you put him into the boundary and get inside the 10-yard line. He's probably any ball anywhere, he's going to make a play. He said those two are so impressive physically, Rico and JG, but the athleticism of Braylon is through the roof. I mean, you just read this and you're just like, that sounds like 3 completely different kids.
Yes.
And that's what you want. They're different skill sets. They bring something different to the table. Yep. And it gets you fired up, dude. It really does. At least it does for me. It has me fired up because, like, you know, we have our evaluations and we hope that our evaluations are accurate, but they're not. Everybody misses. And then you read that stuff and you're like, yeah, okay, I feel really good right now about where this group is. I feel really good about where this group is. So, but Rico, that's why Rico is my number 2, Ryan.
That's a good one. Yeah. And I think that, you know, for me, I think some people might pick like Tyler Buckner, that he's kind of stepped up to the plate. I didn't really go in that route. I would start this conversation, Brian, because I think I'm about to steal your third guy, if I remember correctly. But Jabron Payne's been a pleasant surprise this spring for me, man. Like, I really think that he has stepped up to the plate in a number 3. I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm starting the conversation, man.
You're pulling a Driscoll. That's what you're doing. I'm always stealing the things you want to talk about. Now you're paying me back.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I'll say this: there's a lot more. There's a lot more pleasant surprises on the defensive side of the ball for me than offensive. So you know we're going to overlap at times. We're going to overlap.
Just Jabron Payne.
Jabron Payne in a running back room that has been, you know, a little bit of injuries. Obviously, Logan Diggs has been limited, obviously, this spring. Jadarian Price is still coming back from the injury. Jeremiah Love is not going to get here till the summer. We're talking about Audric Estime. We're talking about Jabron Payne. And again, Jabron Payne has worked well enough where you're like, is he going to have a role in the fall, right? Like he has an opportunity, I think, to fight for that opportunity, not only to get some touches in the backfield, but also kick returner. He could be in that role. So Jabron Payne's been a pleasant surprise because I don't think you 100% knew exactly what to expect from him, but he has been with limited competition around him at running back. He's been able to shine through, which has been really good to see. Really good to see.
Ryan, I mean, I think the thing for me, when you look at Jabron Payne was, I just don't know if he's going to be healthy. And it's kind of like he was the healthy one this spring and others weren't. And it allowed him to step into the spotlight. I think the thing that surprised me about Jabron is I'm not surprised. I'm glad he's healthy. Not surprised he's healthy. I'm not at all shocked that he's really quick and agile and can make people miss. We saw that on film. I'm not surprised he can catch the football out of the backfield. I'm surprised how thick he is and the authority he runs with. That because we hadn't really seen him in 2 years. I mean, really, that's the thing that surprised me. He runs with authority. I knew the shiftiness was there. I knew the catching ability was there. I knew he had some juice. If he was healthy, that wasn't a surprise, but that was good to see. Is he's got his juice is coming back because he was a kid who could run. I mean, he was a big play guy in Cincinnati as a sophomore. He averaged like 9, almost 10 yards a carry as a sophomore, playing in that really good Cincinnati league. And so you knew he had some juice, but he's not like a skinny slot guy. He's built like a running back. And to see that lower body starting to get built up, that's the thing that has me really encouraged about Jabron. And that was the surprise for me with Jabron is not that he's playing well. I'm happy that I'm surprised he got as many opportunities as he did because of some of the injuries. But he runs with a lot more authority than I ever saw from him in high school. And to see that lower body built up like it is, you're like, okay, they got something here. It's a good football player. And I mean, again, is he, oh my gosh, he's, they have 5 first-round draft picks at running back. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this kid's a good football player. And if this kid's in your rotation someday, including 2023, all right, cool. Let's roll. Let's do it. Let's go play.
Man, if Jadarian Price gets back healthy, man, and he's ready to go in the fall, you have some options at running back. You have a lot of options. Speaking of juice, did you see that Jeremiah Love just ran 10.54 in the 100-meter this past weekend?
It's pretty good.
For 195-plus pound running back. It's decent, man. It's all right. It's not too bad. I mean, Micah Bell, ran a 10.41, but he's 170 pounds. We're talking about a 195-pound running back.
And we knew that Micah could do that. I mean,
yes,
we've known he can do that.
Yeah.
We knew Jeremiah was fast, but it's just, on the field, but now you're seeing the track speed and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
he's going to be pretty good. He's going to be
But he's going to be bad. He's going to have to battle to get on the field though. That's the thing that starts getting you excited because there's some, like Jabron Payne, there's some really good football players there right now. And that's the biggest thing, Ryan, that just is such the difference. And I'll give a little glimpse into what my intel piece is going to be. One of the things in my intel piece, talking to the person that I was talking to yesterday and who's been at camp. Well, this is someone who's been at Notre Dame in the past. So he's seen Notre Dame in person. He's been to several springs and he sees this team in person. He was like, this is actually, I'm going to try to find the direct quote, but he was just kind of saying like, how much more athletic this team is compared to past teams that he's seen in person. And I'm gonna pull this, see if I can find it because he sent me a lot. We had a very long conversation last night via text message, but it just was, his comment was, look, I've been to Notre Dame before, and I've seen the kind of athletes that Notre Dame has had in the past. And he goes, this team looks a lot different. This team athletically, this team has got some cats that can run around and be different, and that's what you get excited for. And then most of the guys that they end up talking about were the freshmen and the sophomores, which Jabron Payne is a part of. So he said, they're more athletic than the few years ago when I was here. And he goes, said Zero is a good looking athlete. He was talking about Xavier Watts. Because this is not a guy that's a Notre Dame fan. This is, so it was great to see. But it's because it's good to see confirmation of the things that you think you see. But yeah, Jabron was my number 3, Ryan. It's a good choice.
Love it.
Very good choice. What about defense, Ryan? Who's your number 1 surprise as we kind of transition into the defense?
I mean, it's got to be Jason Onye, right? Like a biggest surprise. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, I think for me, I was, him now being a redshirt sophomore, a third-year sophomore, you're like, okay, like this is usually when that light bulb goes on for some guys, that sophomore to junior year jump that usually happens for some guys. But I saw him last year and I'm like, tall kid, long, athletic, looks the part. But you're just like, just like hand usage, hand placement, playing with leverage consistently, like all that stuff it's just a work in progress.
Right. Does he know how to play football? That's the question. Does he know how to play football? And
then you're hearing all spring he has been impactful, wreaking havoc, and just looks like a different player and a more consistent player. And that is got to start there because one, Notre Dame needs more of that on the interior. They need more of that impact size at him, 290 plus pounds, 292 pounds, his ability to not only play with his length, play with the power he has, but also maybe to split a gap occasionally, make a tackle for loss, make some plays, be an impact as a pass rusher. And again, I'm not sitting here saying Jason Onye is going to be a starting defensive tackle by the end of the season. He's going to be an All-American and all that type of stuff. But having that type of size profile as part of the rotation and that impact that he has, it's monumental, honestly. Like it is. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that it's monumental because that could provide so much more opportunities and so much more possibilities up front for Notre Dame defense.
I mean, we talked a lot about him earlier. I don't need to dive more into Jason. Yes. I mean, he and it's surprise isn't that you don't think a guy's got got the talent for it, but a guy goes from playing nothing to doing that. That's a bit of a surprise. My number 2, Ryan, I'm going to stay up front. I'm going to talk about another guy. Javonte Jean-Baptiste has been much better than I thought he was going to be because he looks bigger than I expected him to be. They say he's 250. He's bigger than that. I guarantee he's closer to 260 when they do measurements in the summer. He plays a lot more power than I thought. Like I knew he had a really nice twitchy burst off the edge. We've seen that at Ohio State. That's what they used him to do at Ohio State. I'm surprised how well he is at setting the edge and his technique. His pass rushing repertoire is better than what he had at Ohio State. There was one particular play where it was a great rep between him and Blake Fisher. And I think it was in one of the highlights, but I've seen like 2 to 3 reps like this. There was one of them in the highlights, but I'm watching him practice. And I don't know if this is the one that was on the highlights, but I remember there being something like this where he's coming off the edge and Blake shoots his hands at him and Javonte smacks him down. And then Blake does a great job of resetting back on him. And Javonte hits and digs underneath Blake's armpit to get around the edge. It was a great rep by both guys on that particular play. Javonte beat him because Javonte was a step quicker off the ball. But it was like, this is 2 kids that know how to play the game battling. You want to see that. And he's been a lot better than I thought he was going to be. He really is. He really is. And so now again, let's see him translate in the fall. I thought he'd be a really good, solid, like big end guy as part of rotation, but he has been, it is not hard to see who their best big end is right now, field end is right now. And it's been obvious, very obvious. Like he is the best looking big end they've had since Adetokunbo Ogundeji, who is the most, the best comp of size and style of play. It's physically, he looks thicker than Adetokunbo did. Adi's a little bit longer, but Adi was a freaky long. But athletically, how they play, very similar players. Very similar players.
And that's one position where it wasn't bad in 2022, but it's like more impact, right? I mean, that was the thing about Riley. It's like Riley was a good big end, but more impact than the 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks he had, or whatever the heck it ended up being, right? Like you need that
position 6.5 and 3.5 or something like that. Yeah,
like you need just a little more production, a little more impact production. And Javonte seems like he might be able to do that. I mean, we'll see. Again, he had a lot of flashes at Ohio State, in a reserved role, in a very specific role for Ohio State. Can he do that on a higher scope? It seems like he might be able to. So very hopeful.
Yeah. So far.
Very hopeful.
Yeah, so far.
If we move to linebacker, Brian, I know there's one guy that you've been talking about all spring. I'm sure he's going to be in this conversation, but is there a linebacker for you that has been a surprise? Let's say.
Yeah. I'll say this: yes and no. And the no comes from I expect the Nolan Ziegler to have a breakout this spring, if given the opportunity. That's the surprise. I'm surprised that they are giving the younger guys an opportunity. I had zero expectations for Al Golden to give those kids legit reps. And from what I'm told, him and Jalen Snead were getting first and second team reps the day it went. And Marcus Freeman's talked about this publicly, but again, what they say publicly is not always what's happening privately. Let's be real about that. Or it's not the full truth. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have a right to know every single little thing going on within the program. And so but you hear that from other sources that aren't spinning things, and you're like, oh, okay, that's legit. Where Al Golden early in the spring, they were putting different first team lineups out there. Like, okay, today you're working with the ones. Hey, today you're working. Hey, what are you gonna do? Just throw them into the fire. Oh, today you're one of the ones. You have about 30 minutes of prep to get your mind ready for the fact that you're going to be the first team linebacker today. All right, and see what you can do. And every time he did that, he stepped up to the point now where it's like, yeah, this kid's going to play. He's going to be a part of whether he's starting or coming off the bench. This kid's going to play a ton. And every time he gets a chance to do something, he makes plays. And so I'm not surprised by that. I'm a little pleasantly surprised how quickly because like the first time we saw him in the spring, you'd see the athleticism, but then he was always just like a second slow reacting to the ball. By the end of the practices, it was a completely different deal. It was see ball, run to ball, get ball. And it was just, bam, it was just going. And so you see that and you're like, okay. And what it looks like to me is they're all playing off of each other. JD's had a great spring. Guess what? I don't think it's a coincidence that he's having a great spring while Jack's also having a great spring. And I don't think it's a coincidence those two are having a great spring while Jalen Snead is making a ton of plays. Now, he's not the every down linebacker yet. He's got a lot to learn there, but he's, as a third down guy, if you want to be on the field on third down, you better be pretty good because Jalen Snead can get after the quarterback as well as anybody on the roster on third down, from what I'm told. And hey, JD, we love you. You're a captain, but this 42, as I said earlier, is 42. He wants your job. Hey, number 8, 42 wants your job. He doesn't care whose job he's taking. He wants somebody's job. And he's out there working for it every day. And then Drake Bowen's like, okay, I wanted to play as a freshman. I got to beat out that dude. So I better bring it today. I better figure it out. And it's risen the entire, those things like that can raise the entire room, Ryan. And that's why Marcus Freeman emphasizes competition so much. It's not just about this drill is going to be about competition. It's about, hey, I don't care if you're an All-American last year. We went 9-4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody at Notre Dame cares that you were an All-American on a 9-4 team. The guys that are remembered as the elites of all time are the guys that were All-Americans on teams that played for titles and won titles. Right? So that's the goal. It's not to be an All-American or an all-conference or whatever else caliber guy. It's who helps me now. What you did last year doesn't matter. It's are you doing that? Have you raised your game? That's the question. And so I think it's been great, man. It's been great to see that. Very great to see that.
Yes. I mean, so part of what you said was kind of leading into my linebacker talk, Brian, is that I am also pleasantly surprised that we have heard so much about the young linebackers this offseason so far. And that is about opportunity. I think opportunity has been the biggest surprise for me. Like it really is. I thought that we were going to hear about, how great Maris is looking this offseason, which we've heard of a little bit of. And, the veterans are looking good and they're picking stuff up. And it's like everybody else is getting eased along. They need to get a little bit bigger, but they're coming along, like very general stuff. But you are hearing about Drake Bowen. You're hearing about Jaden Osbury. You're hearing about Nolan Ziegler taking a jump. You're hearing about Jalen Snead. So for me, it's like my biggest surprise is how many of the young guys I'm hearing about, right? It's not that I'm hearing about one or two. Like I'm hearing about a little bit about everyone. I'm like, that's very positive to me. Like that's optimistic to me. I'm like, some guys are actually getting opportunities this offseason. Like that's fantastic. So hearing about Jalen Snead, hearing about Jaden Osbury, hearing about Drake Bowen, hearing about Nolan Ziegler, hearing, even a little bit about Preston Zinter, even though I know the game's moving fast for him right now, but like you still hear that there's reps where you see it, right? Like you see it. It's very positive to me. So being able to see those guys in full time, full speed, being able to move around a little bit and getting opportunities to do so, it's monumental. I'll use the word monumental again. Like that means a lot to me. It means a lot that there's opportunity being thrown out there.
Yeah. The biggest surprise of all, and we're saving this one for last because it's kind of it's not offense, it's not defense, it's a little bit of both. The revelation of Lorenzo Styles getting some work at defense. And the coaches kind of played it cool. Coach was like, hey, how many reps did you see? It only one, right? Yeah, coach, but he spent an entire individual period over there with the defensive backs. And then Coach Mickens also playing it cool. And y'all know I love Coach Mickens and Coach Freeman. They're just doing what coaches are supposed to do. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not get too far up because we're not sure where this is going to go. So don't turn this into something that we're not sure it's going to be yet. Totally fine with that. I would do the same thing if I was them. But then Lorenzo walks into the press conference and he's wearing a white jersey, which is what the defensive players wear in practice, And it's like, okay, guys. All right, cool. Yeah, he only took a couple snaps on defense today, but he was wearing a defensive jersey.
He's wearing a white jersey,
And then we talk to our sources, and it sounds like hey, look, this is something that could end up being a thing. And so we'll see if that continues or not. But you start getting kind of fired up because you start thinking like, hey, this kid's got a chance to be a really good football player. This kid's got a chance to be somebody can help you at different places. Where's that going to be? And so is it going to be playing two ways? Is it something? Because to me, I'm not a huge fan of guys playing both ways, but his kit situation is unique because Notre Dame's secondary coverage preference is not as hard to learn.
Yeah.
And you do have a great coach. You have two really good technical coaches at the two positions he plays, but he technically isn't a starter at either one. So there's less of a burden on that. He doesn't have to play 60 reps as a wide receiver. Doesn't have to play 60 reps as a corner. So I'm usually not a fan of the can he play both ways types of guys. But in this instance, I'm willing to give it a shot and see what it can do. But I'm excited to see sort of what he can bring to the table, Ryan. And I'm not necessarily even opposed if they want to do something with him as more of a full-time corner. I wouldn't be opposed to that, especially if Christian Gray being down. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I really wouldn't. Adds more competition to the room. And as we said, it speeds up the clock for the freshman receivers.
Yes.
Which is good.
More opportunities for the freshmen. And honestly, Brian, Lorenzo's got a very interesting profile for cornerback. He's a 6'1" kid with good length, and he can obviously run, and he's a good athlete. It's like, you said like we only saw one great rep, but it's like that was a really nice rep, though.
Yeah.
He took him into the sideline.
Really good freaking rep.
Oh, okay, all right, man. So yeah, I look at that and I say, where does it go from here? It's a question mark. But just the fact that, and I'll say this. It seems, and I listened to the press conference where Lorenzo came out. He looked bought into me. Like he sounded bought in, I should say. Like it sounded like he was good with the option to play defense. Like it did sound very optimistic to me in that regard.
Well, that's such an important thing because I think he had a rough year last year.
Yes, he did.
And mentally. And I don't know if he was bought in last year for a number of reasons. And then I don't know why. But that's just kind of what I heard. And then you saw it on the field and the frustration of it got in his head about catching the ball.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk, it's like, okay, that's the really confident, borderline cocky Lorenzo Styles that we saw in high school. Because the funny thing is Lorenzo's a really quiet kid. So you may not realize how cocky he is I say confident. And in this instance, I mean cocky in a positive way. And because you don't hear it as much because he's not a talker, but you talk to guys in the field and they're like, yeah, Lorenzo talks now. Don't get it twisted. He may not talk to y'all, but trust me, Lorenzo talks.
Yes.
And I don't know if we didn't see that confident Lorenzo last year. We didn't. So if you see confident Lorenzo Styles, I don't care where you play him somewhere.
Yeah.
Let him return kicks. Let him return punts. Like if you want to turn into a full-time corner and say, okay, you're going to also be our punt returner. All right, cool. Give him the ball. That's fine.
Yeah.
And then if you have a need at receiver, you can still play him there. I just want to see the kid play, but I'm just excited that they're willing to experiment with this. A kid that kind of played a bunch. and yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. And I think that that's the big one in the secondary too, because I mean, again, like I expected Christian Gray to play well as a freshman, right? Like I expected him to come in and be able to do some stuff. I expected Benjamin Morrison to play well. Cam Hart's been playing a little bit in a non-contact opportunity, obviously this spring, but like we know what to expect from Cam Hart as well. I mean, and then we talked about the safety position already, Brian. It's like, there's just not many guys out there, and there's not been a huge surprise. Like I expect Xavier Watts to take a nice step forward and be that guy. Ramon Henderson has been kind of up and down. Like that's not anything out of the norm. And DJ Brown's a 6-year senior. Like there's no surprises there. So I think that really is the biggest surprise in the secondary, just because I don't think there's a lot of other massive surprise on the back end for Notre Dame this spring. It just doesn't seem like that to me.
Yeah, not like some others. Yeah, no, you're correct. Not like some others. So Ryan, that's going to do it for this portion of the show. We're going to go into the draft part. Let's just wrap up the draft part real quick. This will be a little fun conversation before we get into the mailbag.
Yep.
The way they did it last year is they had veterans. They kind of put like certain veterans on each team, and then they would just do a draft. They would draft players. So I want to just have some fun, and we'll cover it tomorrow. We'll talk about what the draft results are in our show tomorrow. But what I would talk about is like if you were doing a draft, if I said to you, I'm the head coach, and I'm saying, Ryan, you're my director of player personnel, right? So
yeah,
we're going to do a draft. How do you want to do it? That's what I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up, because I have feelings on how the proper way to do it. And first I want to get your thoughts on it.
I would break it up into groups personally for me. So like I would go position by position and say, running backs, like these are the 2 running backs on one side. This is the 2 running backs on another. Here's the wide receiver group. So break each position group into 2 sides of the coin. And I can mix and match how I feel like mix and match as a staff. And then I would allow 2 people to vote or 2 drafts. So I think it's a really cool idea to have 2 veterans, for instance, that do draft the teams. But I don't like the idea of doing it individually, because then I think that you break up some positions where it's like cohesiveness is important, right? Like it's not going to be a very good, like developmentally understanding of how a guy performs because he's been playing next to this guy all off season, and then he's just kind of next to a guy that he doesn't have any reps with. I'm just thinking of like offensive line for specifics, right? So positionally, I would break it up into groups. I would let 2 guys draft groups, not individual players. So I want this quarterback group here, come to me. But the one thing I would do on top of that snake draft type of conversation is that the 2 veterans that are picking these teams, they can pick whatever group they want at any time. So like if a first guy says, I want that quarterback group, awesome. They don't have to just pick the next quarterback group though, right? They can go down and be like, okay, I want that safety group. That's my safety group. So that it becomes a little bit of fun, because you're like, I need to get a little strategic behind the scenes here of like, which groups do I definitely want on my team? Like I need to make sure I prioritize this spot, prioritize the other. So you can go anywhere, but I really like to do the idea of mixing up groups instead of just drafting individual players, because it moves a little quicker. And I also think that as a coach, I want to have some control over what this is going to look like, right? So I want to make sure that some groups are intact. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
You're close to being spot on, Ryan.
Yeah.
Very close, but you're not quite there. You didn't go far enough.
Okay.
I would have 2 drafts.
Okay.
One happens within each room.
Okay.
And so basically you say, okay, now it's a little hard at some of the positions where there's not as many guys. But you have Tyler Buckner and Sam Hartman. Obviously, you're not going to be on the same team. So you pick who you want with you, right? So you have your quarterback room. Sam drafts Kenny Minchie. Tyler drafts Steve Angeli. Do the same thing in the running back room. But then you do it in the receiver room. Hey, Dion is one, and Tobias, you're another. Okay. Or Jaden Thomas. It's Jaden and Dion. I'm going to go with veterans. Jaden and Dion. You guys get a pick. Then let them draft their own receiving core. Right?
That's cool.
And then, as the receivers coach, like, hey, man, you might want to think about you haven't taken anybody that can play in the slot. Like, you know what I mean? And then do the same thing in the offensive line. Hey, Joe Walton, Blake Fisher, or Blake and Zeke, or what, you know what I mean? Like, you guys are the 2 team captains, and you pick who you want with you. And let them draft their own lines, and then do it all across. And so then now you have here's your 2 running back rosters, here's your 2 receiver rosters, here's your 2 tight end rosters, here's your 2 O-line rosters, here's your 2 D-line rosters. And then you take 2 teams of captains. So it'd be like, you know, I'd have like JD Bertrand and
Jack Kaiser.
No, like JD Bertrand at one position, and then like maybe Cam Hart or something like that, 2 on defense. And then on offense, I'd have, whatever offensive lineman that I didn't get to pick the team would then be a captain, right?
Gotcha.
And then obviously you're going to have his team is going to be part of your group, right? Like his unit. So like if Cam's one, okay, his cornerback tandem's already part of that. So, which could get, or you could just say, hey, look, the guys that are picking teams are not allowed to be part of, the captains are not part of the group that you're drafting, right?
Gotcha.
Do something like that. But then allow that guy to then draft. So you want RB1 or RB2, right? Or, and then they got to pick it that way. Now you can pick however you want, but you've got to draft an offensive line group. You've got to draft a D-line group, a corner group, a safety group. But you get to pick which order you want to get them, which one's more important to you. I do it something like that, because you talked about units, but I think there's even, you're getting even more guys involved in this because you're now letting the veterans pick the how you're going to divvy up the lines and the linebacking cores and all that kind of. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And then what we see as fans is they televise is sort of the final product. The final deal. And then I'd have, and then there's not as many guys being picked because you're picking units. You could have some fun with it by announcing the units, like,
oh man, the Notre Dame media department could have such good content out of that.
With the number one pick, Cam Hart selects offense and give them like their fun name. Hey, you guys pick whatever your funky name is, right? We are the offensive line. We're the Monstars or something like that, right? Who are led by 6'6", whatever, right tackle from Avon, Indiana, Blake Fisher. And then you announce that group, right? I think that'd be a blast.
Yeah.
And then now it's not like, okay, dude, you were the last guy picked. No, it was that your unit's picked, but who was part of that unit? Like your best offensive lineman or your best defense. So it's not like that same level of, okay, this is a little bit weird. Yeah. So that's kind of how I would do it. That's what I would do. And then that way, as a position coach, you can control, hey, look, guys, we need to make sure. And then what you could do is you could do trades. Like this would be the fun part for the players. You could do trades like, hey, you know what, crap, we don't have a center. So I'm going to trade you, this guy for that guy. And then the coach is the commissioner and he can decide if there's enough. And then you can like have some fun with like, okay, that's not enough. You got to give more. Okay, cool. Pizza Friday night on me. I'll give you this guy
first round picks for Zeke
I'll give you this guy and a large pizza and a 2-liter of whatever for, Ashton Craig, because I need a center. You know what I mean? Like that'd be so much fun because the kids would be so bought into that and how it's happening in each room. I think that'd be a blast. And then let the part that we see televised, you're drafting the positions and then you're putting it together. I think that'd be a blast. That'd be so much fun. So much fun.
Love it, man. 2 first-round picks for Zeke Corral, please.
Yeah.
Trade it to me.
Well, no, you can't do future picks but it's just like you got to. Okay, here's what you have to work with. You've got a meal here. You've got a pizza. You've got 2 liters. You've got I'll do your laundry for your next load of just some fun stuff like that would be a blast. And you don't have to. You're not televising that, so you can have some fun with it, right? I mean.
But you should get some clips of that though, because it would be great for the media. It would be great.
I forget the media. It'd be great for fans. Would love that.
That's what I'm saying. The media for fans. They put that stuff out there.
Here's how the O-line draft went down, and you edit out the part of the stuff like, that's probably not appropriate. So it's like a highlight video, but that'd be a blast. See the negotiations between Blake Fisher and Zeke Corral for the rights to Ashton Craig because Blake forgot to draft a center. You know what I mean? Or Joe Alt forgot to draft a center or something like that. That'd be so much fun. Like, oh, shoot, I don't have a second guard. I need to, because the rule is you can't move a guy to a position he hasn't played this spring.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it'd be so much fun. I'd have a blast with that. That'd be so much fun, man. So much fun.
Right there, Brian. There's a curmudgeon of a fan.
Yeah, your mic went out for a second.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're back now, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know what just happened there. I was going to say somewhere there's a curmudgeon of a fan who's like, I hate that idea. I just want them to pick the game and let's get it going here, man. I don't want to see any fun. Fun is I hate fun. Fun is all. But yeah.
Here's my deal, man. Look, we had a thread on the board and people are saying, giving all the ideas on how we can make our show better. And there's this one guy on the show that on the he always responds to shows on YouTube complaining about how long they are. No, that's fine. And it's just kind of like, look, here's the reality of it. There's nothing I can do or say that's going to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what I think is fun and what I like to do and how I like to do it. And if I'm Marcus Freeman, it's like, brother, there's not a thing that you can do that's going to make everybody happy.
Ever.
So do what you think is best for your players.
Yeah.
Do what you think they're going to have the most fun with and what will be the most team building. Do that. And then just have fun with it. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. Because you know what? All those curmudgeons and all those people that are going to have, when you go 12-0 this year, they're not going to give a rip. Now, maybe next time you might trust me that I know how to build this team. You know, so that's, but I think that'd be a blast, man. I think that'd be a great idea.
Too.
That'd be a ton of fun.
Too. I would love it. I like the players having some control over it. You know, like that's fun to me. That's very.
I do, but I'd also kind of want to protect it in a way where it's like you're making sure you have the right rosters, and you're not also like, you know, certain kids can't get picked, you know, or get picked last, and it's just like, you know, now you got to worry about people's feelings and all that other kind of stuff.
That's why I like dividing it into groups, because then it's like you have to be strategic with what group you pick, and that's so it's not like just isolating a player like you're the last pick type of thing. It's like, no, there was strategy here. I didn't just pick you because you're the worst player or whatever, like perceived that way. So yeah, man.
All right, so let's wrap it up, Ryan, before we go to the mailbag.
Yep. So let's go to the mailbag next. Before we do, if you all could please just hit that like button, subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell, and sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. We'll be talking a lot about some players who have been on campus and players who are going to be on campus here and over the next few days. So make sure you're subscribed to boards.irishbreakdown.com, because there will be a lot of intel this weekend. Trust me when I tell you that I'll be there talking to kids all day. And it's going to be a blast. So make sure to sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. But now we're going to move to the mailbag.
So Ryan, before we dive into the mailbag, I do, because we did promise early in the show that we would give a recruiting update. So before we dive into the mailbag, I do want you to kind of give the latest on Jason Robinson and just kind of what you've been able to dive into and find out there, and then we'll get into the questions.
Sure. Yeah. So originally Jason was supposed to come on campus on the 16th, which was Sunday. He was at the Penn State spring game, and I think he actually ended up staying until overnight into Sunday. So he stayed Saturday and Sunday at Penn State, doing a little bit of the Midwest swing. He was also at Syracuse a couple days before that. So they've been kind of all over the Northeast and Midwest here. And basically what happened, Brian, is he shows up on the 17th, which is a Monday, gets there about midday. I think it's like 12 o'clock when the Robinson family finally gets in. And the original plan, from what my understanding, is that, hey, we're going to spend the entire day here, and then we're going to leave sometime tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. Like, that's kind of the plan. Well, as we are sitting here now on a Wednesday, which is the 19th, the Robinson family is still on campus, still here. So they have now been here for 2 full days and a half of another one so far, right? So we're sitting here this is unusual territory-ish. I mean, we see this sometimes, but usually the multi-day type of stays are much more official visit type of situations. Spending this many days on an unofficial visit, it's different. It's different. Yeah. And from everything that I've been able to gather behind the scenes from sources close to the Robinson family, the coaches are knocking this one out of the park. Absolutely are. And from the sound of it, the plan is still for the Robinsons, or for Jason, to take his official visits here coming up very shortly. In
June,
in May into June, right? To be able to take those official visits. So this is not one where I'm saying like, oh, he's committed and blah 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 blah. But what I am telling you is that heading into that official visit schedule that will be out there, which I expect Notre Dame to also be a part of, by the way, Notre Dame is in a very, very good spot and has really hit this one out of the park. And guys, just for some context on this one, guys and gals, excuse me for that. This was a player that
Guys is a general term. People aren't going to be offended by that one.
I just want to make sure, man.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Jason Robinson is a Long Beach Poly kid, which is out in California, Long Beach, California, that was committed to the University of Southern California for a long time, sophomore year up until, a couple months ago. So he was committed to USC for over a year. Notre Dame has continued, and this is a shout out to the coaching staff, but specifically Chancey Stuckey. He has been a monumental part of this recruitment that has kept Jason's eyes open. And the minute that he decommitted from USC, Notre Dame was at the forefront of being one of the assumed big players there. So I just want to do a quick shout out to Chancey Stuckey because I think that this one is trending in a great direction for Jason eventually being a part of the Notre Dame program. And we'll know obviously more of it after the official visit schedule and all that great stuff. But Chancey Stuckey has been an absolute baller on this recruitment. Absolute baller. Getting a Long Beach kid to be seriously interested in Notre Dame is a big thing in general. And Brian, can I also mention the 2 times he's been on campus? One was the Boston College game, which we know was a snowball. A lot of snow in that one. And the last couple of days in South Bend have not been the best weather of all time either. It's been pretty cold. Not the most pretty weather of all time.
That's not super cold, but yeah, it's been cold.
Yeah.
We got a little sunshine yesterday, though. That's
nice. Good, man. That's good.
Yeah.
But to get him in those situations, a Long Beach kid, and to be able to hit these notes that they're hitting with Jason Robinson, great job by Notre Dame. And they put themselves in a tremendous position with the California pass catcher. 2024, by the way. I don't think I've ever mentioned 2024 kid.
I am curious to see if the process gets sped up by certain factors that may happen over the next couple weeks.
It's possible.
That's going to be interesting. But I will say that it is interesting, too, because I have noticed that Notre Dame is not putting any pressure on kids to commit that want to take officials. They're being very adamant if a kid wants to commit. And there's been some kids that have brought up wanting to commit. We know of one kid that did it. Well, I'll just say it's Peyton Pierce committed to Notre Dame. But he wanted to go public, but Notre Dame was like, but you're going to take more visits. And so we're not going to take that right now.
Yep.
And smart, because now they didn't lose. I mean, he didn't flip. Notre Dame did not. I shouldn't say he committed. Peyton Pierce wanted to commit to Notre Dame.
Yes.
And they said, not right now. Take the visit first. Now, that's not me saying they didn't want Peyton Pierce. That's not, they didn't even want. No, they wanted him, but they learned their lesson from last year.
Yep.
About that. And
don't go public until you are 100% certain and visits are done.
Right.
That's the lesson.
And they're not treating silent commitments that way, the way that they did last year.
Yep.
It's like, look, as long as you're taking visits, that spot's still open. I mean, we can say you're silent or whatever, but that spot's open. And I think that's smart. I think it's very smart to see them taking that approach. And it shows me that they've learned quickly. They've adjusted very quickly to what big boy recruiting is all about.
Yep.
It's just in Cincinnati anymore. It's just Notre Dame. It's a different animal.
And they've been very open about that conversation. I think it's a great note, Brian. Like even to Jason, Jason was already commit this trip. So that's not what I'm saying out in the universe, but they had a truthful conversation of hey man, we love you. We think you love us, but don't make a decision right now or anytime in the next couple of days, right?
Until you're ready to shut it down.
Exactly.
Right.
If you want to take visits, that's fine. But you're not going to commit to us until after those visits have happened. So that's kind of the conversations that have happened, not only to Jason, but to other recruits as well, right? That's a conversation piece that needs to happen. And I think that does show growth for Notre Dame. So that's a great note, absolutely. I think. Yeah.
We'll start it off here, Ryan. We have a couple super chats that we're going to get started off with. Number one is from Patrick Frass. Thank you, Fraz. Thank you, Patrick, very, very, very much for that.
Yep. And a super chat from Danny Roberts. Great last name. Name. Coach D.
Thank you for the super chat also, Danny. Even though Ryan's obsessing over the beauty of your last name, I also wanted to thank you for your super chat.
I just assumed that. Danny, thank you so much for the super chat and for having the greatest last name known to man. Coach D, if Notre Dame were to make the playoff in the fall, of the top teams who are competing for a spot, who would be some of the better matchups for Notre Dame based off of scheme and personnel?
It's a good question.
It's a really good question.
Yeah. So, this is going to sound crazy. I'm going to say this. I want Notre Dame to play Georgia in the playoff if Georgia is in the playoff. Meaning what I don't want to happen is I don't want Notre Dame to get in and, let's say, draw a TCU type of team. And then the way the seeding works out, Georgia and Ohio State play each other. And then Ohio State knocks, say Ohio State because Notre Dame would have knocked them out. Let's just say, pick a team, I don't know, Oregon gets in some wildly, or Washington gets in, and all of a sudden Notre Dame, beats Oklahoma in the semifinals. Nobody cares. I mean, Oklahoma's even worse in the playoff than you are, Notre Dame. And then Georgia gets upset by Washington or Oregon, and then you beat them, and then your title is just kind of diminished because, well, you didn't beat Alabama, you didn't beat Georgia, and now it won't be diminished in practice. I'm talking about like how some in the media and fans will portray it, right? And also for me as a competitor, I want to beat the big dog, right? Like what I love about the 88 title is they had to beat the big dog to get there. They had to beat Miami. That was the big dog back, defending champs, had won 30-some games, regular season games in a row. You had to beat the big dogs to get there. And I just feel like I want to play Georgia. And I also feel like Georgia is the ultimate test of who are you as a team, Notre Dame. Because Georgia plays football very similarly to Notre Dame. Not schematically, Ryan, but how they build their team. It's in the inside out, baby. That's how they build their roster. Notre Dame does as well. And so part of, the matchup is, can you beat the team that's built like you, but the perception is built better than you?
Yeah.
That's just how I am. That's just the kind of competitor I am. And if I know Marcus Freeman at all, and if I know the players in this team at all, that's what they want. They don't want the easy path. I'll bring on Jordan. Now, you don't say that publicly because you don't want to wake up that, you don't want to be that guy, bring on, remember that year when Vanderbilt started off like 4-0, 5-0, and they're like, bring on Bama. And it's like, bro, guys, you haven't beat anybody good.
Was that the Jared Pinkney year? Was that
I think
year?
So. And then they played Alabama, and it went exactly how you think it would go when a team calls out Alabama, and it's like, that was not a good idea. I'm trying to think of what year it was. Was it 17, Ryan? I'm trying to find the year that it was.
They had that one
it
good
was
year.
No, it was 2017. Yeah, they started off 3-0. They had just beat Kansas State, and they had Bama coming to town the next week. Yeah, and they were on the old bring on Bama, and Bama beat them 59-0 They only won 2 more games the rest of the year.
That was a good Vanderbilt team, though. They had Kyle Shermer and
it ended up not being that good. But I think part of it was just of how badly they got beat the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so because they ended up 5-7, but it was a talented Vanderbilt team, in my opinion. It's the one that led them to a bowl game the next year. I mean, it was Kyle Shermer, you mentioned. Trent Sherfield, Kalijah Lipscomb was a guy that I liked a lot. Jared Pinkney was on that team. Yeah. Ralph Webb was the leading receiver or rusher on that team. Vaughn was the next year.
Yeah. Keyshawn transferred from Illinois. Yeah. It's a good player, though. Good player.
Yep. And I think that team also, if I remember correctly, Orrin Burks was on that team as well. Remember him?
Good player. Yeah. He plays I think he starts for the Green Bay Packers still, Orrin Burks.
So Georgia's won. I think Michigan is a team that I think Notre Dame would match up well against.
Michigan's a big one for me, man. That's a big one. Yeah.
I think they match up well against Michigan.
A lot of what you said with Georgia, like Michigan is built similarly to Notre Dame. They want to be rock solid in the trenches and be able to work inside out. Like they want to do that type of stuff. I really think that Notre Dame can take advantage of things, though, in the space a little bit. I think they have some better athletes at certain spots, which they'd be able to take some opportunities there.
And I think Michigan has a chance to have some pretty good skill this year.
They do.
But I think Notre Dame is built to where they can match up better against that. I mean, we saw that last year. I mean, it's funny, I was talking, we were talking one of the shows recently, and about how it's important that the North as a whole get better, not just Notre Dame. It's important that the whole get better. Now, you will need to be the best of the teams in the North. But one of the things that's often overlooked about Michigan the last couple of years is they've got more athletic at the skill positions.
Yeah.
And you've got Notre Dame. I would argue that Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State have 4 of the 6 or 7 best running back rooms in all of college football. And 1-2 punches, there aren't many better than Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. There aren't many. Now they're not quite as good at receiver, but they got some athletes out there. They're not stiffs out there. But I think Notre Dame matches up well against that. I'd be concerned about Michigan's run game more than their pass game in that type of matchup for Notre Dame. And again, but to your point, Ryan, I think Notre Dame's secondary would match up much better against Michigan's skill than Michigan's secondary would match up against Notre Dame's skill, in my opinion. Yep. And so I like that matchup as well. I do.
It would be fun.
I like those two
matchups. A lot of fun.
And I think they match up a lot better against Alabama's offense than they ever have. This would be the best chance they have at slowing down Alabama's offense ever. But I think Alabama's defense is built in a way that would give Notre Dame a lot more problems than the other 2 defenses that I mentioned.
And you should know what the Alabama offense will look like pretty well, right?
And it's not even about that, honestly. Even if it was Bill O'Brien or if the guy from Washington would have been hired, I just don't think the personnel's as good. I said this before Tommy Rees took that job. I've been saying this for a while. The personnel's not as good as it's been. Now it's still good. It's still really good. It's just not as good as it's been. The receiving core looks nothing like it did in 18 and 19 and 20, even before Jalen Waddle got hurt. And so I just don't think it's as good as it's been. Now they could go out and get some transfers here in April and May and look different, but I'm not worried about Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe. I'm not worried about the receiving core that they have. The defense matches up. I mean, because they got some speedy, some really twitchy edge rushers. I expect Dallas Turner to have a bounce back year. I do. Mm-hmm. They're getting Keon Keeley in as a freshman. And they've got some DBs that have, and this is the thing for me, Ryan, they have some corners that have the size to match up with Notre Dame's big receivers.
Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry Arnold. And,
yes. Their corners, like Terrian's 6 foot, 190 something with pretty long arms. Yeah. The other kid, Kool-Aid, is 6'1" and a half, 190 plus, long arms. They've got some strength. Terrian Arnold was pretty strong for a freshman, I thought, as a corner. Yeah. So that's the thing for me is they have some athletes there that have some size to them and have some length to them that would present a little bit tougher matchup, I think, for Notre Dame than some of the other guys. Teams at the top teams that they play. So I think it'd be a thing where it would be a much lower scoring game than we've seen in the playoff. I think a Notre Dame Alabama game would be a 27-24, 30-27 type of game as opposed to some of the other shootouts we've seen. Because I think both defenses match up really well against the other team's offense. So that's how I kind of view it, Ryan. You see it differently?
No, not really. I don't. I'm really interested to see this Alabama team because I really don't know what to expect from that man. Like I just wasn't in love with the coordinator hires. I'm not even talking about Tommy. I'm talking about the Kevin Steele.
I like the Tommy Rees hire a whole lot more than the Kevin Steele hire. Yeah, a whole lot more.
Kevin Steele hire did nothing for me. Nothing for me. I'm just like, okay, sure, Nick, we're going back into the past, I guess. Like, okay, cool, man, cool. But I mean, I don't know what to expect from the quarterback position. I don't know what to expect from the offensive line as much either. I mean, because they have the right tackle back, but there's a bunch of new guys stepping in as well. I just don't know what to expect, man. I mean, you lose. I know Tyler Steen wasn't a great player, but you lose Tyler Steen, you lose Javion Cohen who transferred, you lose Emil Ekiyor, who's the other starting guard. So you're replacing 3 starters at least up front. So I don't know. I just have questions.
I have a question too. Patrick Frass actually asked a question after the super chat, so I wanted to bring that up. But Patrick, I need to ask you a question first. He said super late, but do you think it's important what team picks their quarterback? If you could do me a favor, Patrick, and just clarify, are you referring to for the Notre Dame team draft, or are you referring to the NFL draft? I just want a little clarification, and once you do that, I would love to kind of hear that, and we'll dive into that a little bit. So I appreciate you kind of clearing that up a little bit. So once you do that, Patrick, we'll bring it. And do not super chat it. You've already given a super chat. Just give me some clarification on your question, and then we'll answer it then. So I'll be on the lookout for that. So let's get back on track, Rye.
From Tommy Guns, Crocs and Glocks. What's up, Tommy? Mailbag, Brian. I'm going to need you to video chat me so I can watch the Blue Gold game. Still not paying for Peacock.
Well, I think Notre Dame's streaming service is going to have it as well, right, Ryan? I think they've said
Are they?
that their streaming service,
Maybe.
that Fighting Irish
Hopefully.
Media thing or something like that. I think, but yeah, man, I wish I could, but I where I'm sitting, you wouldn't be able to see.
Tommy, come on, man. This is the year 2023. You buy the trial offer and then you cancel before the trial offer is over. Come on, man. It's very easy. You sign up, put your credit card in, and the end of the 7 days, you cancel it.
Tommy's taking a stance that I respect. I respect when people are willing to sacrifice things that they love to make a point. And I get it. I think it's silly that people have to pay $4.99 just to watch Notre Dame. And here's the thing: if Peacock was putting together a quality broadcast, or if NBC, but their spring, like they're doing interviews last year, and the audio kept popping, and you couldn't hear it. And it's just like, you want me to pay for this, and you can't even put a good product out. Remember the one year they took like the weird angles? Because NBC's always used Notre Dame as a guinea pig. Hey, let's try these really stupid looking angles out. And if it works, then we'll use it in the NFL. If it doesn't work, then it just means that all the Notre Dame fans had to enjoy a miserable produced spring game.
Or the announcers or trial announcers.
Right. So it's like, I get that. I'm sympathetic to people that don't want to pay $4.99 to watch a crappy produced product. Now, the Notre Dame product will be cool. But it's like, I'm not supporting that because you don't care. And so until Peacock and NBC start actually taking the Notre Dame broadcast more seriously, it's just going to be the case. Now, my hope is that in 2 years when we watch the Notre Dame spring game, it's going to be on Paramount Plus, because the Paramount Plus stream is light years, in my opinion, beyond the Peacock stream, and it's CBS. I think puts on a much better college football product out than I think. NBC. I've always thought CBS does a great job covering games. It just, they weren't willing to pay what the SEC wanted. That's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah.
Or maybe they couldn't afford to pay what they wanted. But I think I still say I'd love to see Notre Dame go to CBS. I would.
Tommy, you can use some of those vacation days, man. Just take the rig out to South Bend as well.
Yeah.
And go yourself.
There you go. Somebody asked, Ryan, they want us to comment on the ESPN released their football power index. I was going to talk about it today, but what I decided I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till next week, and we'll just have a show on it. Just, here's what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, what we think of where Notre Dame is ranked, fair, unfair, where would we have Notre Dame ranked, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So we'll dive into that because, there's some rankings in there made sense, right? Okay. Notre Dame at 9. I'm okay with that at 9. Now, I think Notre Dame would be better than that, but they're not 9-4. Marcus Freeman still has some questions to answer. There's still some things we need to learn about this football team. I'm fine. Sure. I actually think that's kind of high. That's one of the higher rankings that are out there. Most teams don't even have Notre Dame. Most outlets don't even have Notre Dame in the top 10. But then you see Texas at 5, and you're like, hold on a second. You're going to have Notre Dame at 9 and Texas at 5?
That's based on returning production. That's how you do it.
Based on what? Right? I mean, they went 8-5 last year. Yeah. Notre Dame went 9-4. Right? What was their big win last year? Kansas State. They lost to freaking Texas Tech. They lost to Oklahoma State. I mean, okay, they lost to TCU 17-10 at home. The game was not that close. It was 17-3, and then Texas returned a fumble late in the game to make it 17-10. You got completely outplayed. So that'll be the conversation. We'll have that kind of conversation, but that's more of a fun show to do as opposed to a segment in another show or in a mailbag. So Detroit, we will get to that next week, I promise. So here we go, Ryan. Let's get back on track.
From Dawson Torpy, I'm going to be in Ireland for the Navy game. Will you guys be there as well? I will not.
I will not either. So just looking at the price, I had to make the business decision because my wife and I would love to go to Ireland. We want to go to Ireland, but we want to go when it is where we can actually go enjoy it. And the first week with all the shows and stuff, it just is going to be really hard because most people in the media that are covering the game going there for a few days. This isn't a knock. It's just an observation. They can go and write from there. and cover the team and do that. But with so much of what we do being produced in this regard, I don't know if I can do a show from over there. I just didn't. I wouldn't know how it would work. And so now I'm losing money and spending a lot of money. And I was just like, you know what? Trying to make a smart business decision as much as I'd love to go. And my wife is not happy with me, by the way, at all. But just trying to make a smart business decision. And it's Navy. If honestly, I hate to say this, but if it was another team, I'd probably suck it up and go. But it's Navy.
You don't want to see some triple option in Dublin, man?
Ryan, you know the answer to that question. Ryan just trying to start
quick decisions, man. Quick decisions.
Yeah.
Ice in your veins. Ice in your veins.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one.
From Philip Britton.
This was regarding the conversation that people were having about, I think, a comment that some people have made about how, Sam Hartman needs to be named the starter. And so these next two comments are related to that. So it's going to be kind of a two-parter, Ryan.
Gotcha. Well, Philip says instead of getting 50% of practice snaps, he should be getting, talking about Sam Hartman, 80% as the starter. Follows up with, seems like a waste of time right now, especially could be working on timing with the wide receivers.
Couple things. It is inaccurate to say that Sam Hartman is only getting 50% of the first team reps. He's not. He's getting more than 50% of the first team reps. The only time I've seen Tyler Buchner working primarily with the ones was the second practice we went to, but in almost all the videos and the first practice we went to in the scrimmage, Sam Hartman was working with the first team offense. So he is getting more of the first team reps. That's a bit of a misnomer, number one. Number two, spring preparation is completely different than fall preparation.
Yes.
In the spring, you're giving your ones and twos equal snaps always, because you're not playing a game on Saturday. So you don't need to worry about getting 60 to 70% of your snaps to your ones and then your second group. So whether you're working with the ones or the twos, you're getting the same amount of reps. It's the percentage of, are you getting more of the percentage of the reps with the first group is really where the conversation needs to be. And from everything I've seen and everything I've been told, Sam Hartman has gotten more first team reps this spring than Tyler Buchner. And Tyler Buchner earned his first team reps from what he's done. That's number one. Number two, it goes back to what we've discussed today. This is about team building. And I understand, and I'm sympathetic to Malik's point of view on this, because from his experience and what he went through, he thoroughly outplayed, in my opinion, Deshaun Kaiser in the spring and in fall camp from what was open to us. And we had a lot of access back then. And they just wouldn't name him the starter. And then come fall, they end up right before the first game, they tell the quarterbacks, oh, and by the way, you're both playing tomorrow. It was handled so incredibly poorly. And I don't know this because I haven't talked to Malik about it. I listened to his show yesterday and listened because people are like, hey, Malik went on a bit of a rant about it. So I was like, all right, let me check it out, because Malik has a unique experience. Malik has been through quarterback battles. It was him pushing Everett and then Deshaun sort of quote unquote pushing him because of his own injury. So I'm sympathetic to where Malik is coming from. I really am. I just think this circumstance is different than the one Malik inherited, because Malik didn't have to go against a guy that just showed up. And Malik was not a guy that just showed up. Malik was the leader of that team, whether he was the starter or not in that offseason. This is different to where I believe that they need to make Sam work for this in an attempt to, number one, I think take some of the pressure off of him. Because if he's perceived to be in a quarterback battle, look at what people are saying about him now. Maybe he's not as good as we thought. Maybe he's this, maybe he's that. Instead of, Sam Hartman's going to lead us to the promised land and national championship. So it's like it's taking some of that off. And for a kid that doesn't really care about the spotlight, that might actually be a good thing. Number one. Number two, you need to make him earn it, because number one, Tyler Buchner is too good to just push aside and say, wait your turn, kid. Wait his turn. He's been here for 3 years. This is his third year. Sam Hartman's been here for 5 minutes. So I think that would have been a mistake for your relationship with Tyler Buchner. And I think that would have been done major damage to just the overall team morale. You can bring this grad transfer in and you just hand him the job. He hasn't earned a thing in a Notre Dame. I don't care what he did at Wake Forest. I mean, you do, but like as far as being the starter, He needs to show me he can do that here when the pressure's greater, when with these guys, and you make him earn it. And when he does earn it, Sam's going to have a far greater respect from his teammates. And you could see it in that scrimmage highlights, and you could hear from some of the things that people have told us. If Sam wins the job, and again, I fully expect Sam to win the job. I'll be shocked if Sam Hartman's not the starter. Shocked. Tyler's earned to be in this battle. Sam's been every bit as good as I thought he would be, especially when you consider where they are in the development. But it's good for Sam to not just be handed the job and say, well, everybody needs to know who the leader is. No, that's not accurate in this instance. That was true in Malik's case. And that's why Malik should have been the starter, because Deshaun was not a leader and Malik was. This is different. Sam's got to prove that he's the leader of this team. I don't care that he was a captain of Wake Forest. Doesn't matter a lick. None of these people on this team are from Wake Forest. They don't care. They don't know what you did. They don't know the work you put in at Wake. They don't know any of that. You need to earn it here.
Yeah,
that's the key.
I mean, I would say this too, Brian. The last part of this from Phillip, I just want to kind of add to. He's, could be working on timing with the wide receivers. After spring ball, you're not put on. Well, yes, one, he is doing that. He's getting those reps, but also you don't go on the shelf after spring ball and just like be resurrected in August, right? For fall camp. Like, he's going to be working all off season, all summer, into the fall, working on timing with these guys. Like, that's what quarterbacks do. They say, hey man, we're going to go out and throw now, right? We're going to go practice. We're going to go throw the football around. And so there's other opportunities for timing. Like, this isn't a spring ball, then nothing at all, and then into fall practice. Like, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Sam Hartman to get on the same page with Tobias Merriweather, Deion Colsey, Chris Tyree, all those guys. They're going to have opportunities to do that. So just some context, like, this isn't a end all be all. This is the only time they're going to get reps is in the spring practice.
Right. And we're seeing him throw to Chris Tyree and Jaden Thomas and Tobias Merriweather and Jay. So I think that there's a lot of perceived aspects of this that just aren't accurate, in my opinion. And I think that's the thing is, here's the thing. I've always said this: you have the right to your opinion. You don't have the right to your own facts. The facts are the facts. You can perceive the facts in any kind of way you want, but you don't have a right to your own facts. And so you can say, hey, look, I know this is the reality, but I think they should do this. That's fine. That's very fair. But, and I'm not saying this necessarily Phillip. I'm not even saying that he's necessarily saying this, because I don't get that impression per se. I just say, look, at least know what the specifics are. And then you can say, hey, I still don't like it. And that's fair. It's totally fine. I get that. But just kind of be a little bit more on point with what exactly the circumstances are. Sam Hartman's getting a ton of reps of those guys.
Yep.
The reality is Tyler Buckner's earned the right to have some of those reps too, and he is, and that's kind of where there needs to be. And somebody said that Chris Hosfield, and thank you for this comment, Chris, because I mean, I listened to Malik's thing. I didn't listen to all of it, but I listened to it, and I've heard him talk about it before. He says, my perception of Malik's take was that Sam needed to earn it. However, there should have been a deadline for decision by spring to help him in the fall. But again, that's my whole point, is that's an arbitrary earning it. That's my whole point. And again, I don't think Malik's case is unique, and every quarterback situation is unique. And you and I have talked about this. There are times when you don't need to waste this. Look, you know who the starter is. Name him the starter in April. It's just the reality of it. We didn't, there was no name a starter when it was, Ian Book in 2019 just knew he's going to be the starter. I just don't think that helps the team right now. And this is where it is unique. Malik can tell you a whole lot better about what it's like to be a quarterback in Notre Dame than I ever could. My whole point is, but as a college football coach, this particular instance is not something that Malik experienced. They didn't have a quarterback transferring in and battling for that competition. It was guys that had been on the same team since they got into college. It's just a little bit of a unique situation, and I understand where Malik's coming from. I just don't think there should have been an arbitrary deadline on it, and I think that you are basically telling Tyler Buckner it doesn't matter what you do or how well you play. If we're going to put a deadline by the end of spring, that's an unfair thing to Tyler, in my opinion, because now you're going to name the starter, because they're going to name Sam if they did it this spring, they'd name Sam the starter. But has Sam really proven head and shoulders to be way better than Tyler right now? I don't think that he has. And we understand the reasons why, and I'm totally fine with the reasons why. I just don't think it's something that they should necessarily go out and do right this second.
Agree.
So I'm comfortable with where Notre Dame is on this decision. That's why my view of the current quarterback situation is way different than most people. I just think we're having a massive overreaction to some inaccurate perceptions and reporting of what's going on at quarterback.
Right.
And it's the second spring in a row that we've had this. There was no quarterback battle last year, no matter how much people wanted to say that there was. There wasn't. It was Tyler Buchner was going to start last year unless he got hurt. There was never a debate about that, which is why he was named a quarterback 5 days into fall camp. Everybody knew who the quarterback was going to be last year. So, and most people know who the quarterback's going to be this year. It's just, you got to make him earn it. So let's go to another super chat here, Ryan.
Super chat from Craig Sebring. Craig, thank you so much for the super chat. Is it me, or am I just being extra excited about Notre Dame football for the first time since Marcus Freeman took over? I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I don't think you're the only one. I'm very excited about the season.
I think for him, is he the only one that his unique part about was for the first time since Marcus Freeman took over. I think a lot of people were excited last year. I sure was.
Yeah. But he said extra excited. So I took that as he was excited, but he's even more excited now.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. I hope you're not alone. I mean, you got at least two people that are excited about this team and about Notre Dame football.
It's definitely not unanimous, but yeah, you're not alone.
Nor will it ever. And honestly, I don't mind people having differences of opinion. I think there's way too much cult-like thought in this country right now, man, with sports and politics and everything. It's just you know what? I like the fact that there are people that are like, hey, show me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, because I know people that love Marcus Freeman as a man and want him to be super successful, but they're also in that whole, but I'm not getting excited yet because he's got to show me. And right now, all that I know is that he lost to Marshall and lost to Stanford. And that's a very fair thing to say. I'm just not on that board. I'm giving him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I also have a different opinion of the talent of this football team. I have a stronger view on how limiting certain things were to this team last year that don't exist this year. But I think it's totally fair for somebody to say, Sam Hartman, I think he's a great player. He's got to show me he can do that in Notre Dame uniform. Very fair. You know, Tyler Buchner, you can talk all you want about how talented Tyler Buchner is, but he's got to show me he can do it on Saturdays. Fair. Very fair. How can he do it when he's only got a week to prepare as opposed to a month to prepare? Fair. Marcus Freeman's got to show me he can win more consistently. Fair. Bro, Tobias Merriweather's got one career catch. You got to show me something. Fair. All fair. You don't have to agree with me on that. My only point that I've ever said to somebody is at least have a good argument and legitimate facts if you're going to get into the debate. That's all I care about. But I like the fact that people are looking at this different. Makes for more fun shows because hey, this take I'm about to say might not be very popular. But that's what sparks debate and makes this whole thing fun, So, but I do think there's some people. I mean, I think there's a lot of people fired up. I'm sure fired up, But I also, especially for Notre Dame fans. I mean, Ryan, you have not. You're how old? 31.
31. Yep.
You're 31 years old. You've lived on this planet for now going into your fourth decade, right? If you think about it, 1 to 9 is a 1 decade, 10 to 19, right? So you're into your fourth decade. You've never seen Notre Dame win a national championship.
I have not.
So I understand some people saying, I don't want to get too excited. Now, I would say, my man, this is the time you're supposed to get excited. This is the fun part, the offseason. This is the fun part. This is the time when the fans should be fanatics, right? I mean, I'm excited until they give you, but I also understand I've been beat down enough that I just don't want to get too fired up. I need to show me they can do it. I totally respect that.
Trust me, man. I have all the sympathy for the people that scream BK PTSD in the chat because I get it, man. Yeah. I get it. I was programmed for a few years not to expect Notre Dame to win the big game. I fully understand that. I get it, man. Trust me.
Yep.
I get it.
And real quick, Jason Smith asks, do you expect them to name a QB after fall camp? I expect it to be named a lot sooner than that. I think the latest that they'll name a starter, in my opinion, is the latest is 2 weeks before the first game. I think it's the latest that we'll see them name a starting quarterback. That's in my opinion. All right, let's get back on track, Ryan. So there's some people. Bill Walsh said he wants to see an aggressive Colsey. This is kind of in response to some things we talked about, and he wants to see Holden Stace with some nice catches. So he was kind of on board with you a little bit, Ryan. He's excited about Dion like you are, and he's on board with both of us about seeing.
Hey man, if that light switch for Dion Colsey ever turns on, I'm about a really good player, man. Really good, talented player. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get down to ND Estimate Trucking.
ND Estimate Trucking LLC says, was very optimistic about offensive line coaching and Coach Rudolph until he stated that Tosh Baker could move into play guard basically seamlessly in his presser. Your thoughts on Baker at guard?
So his comment was more of a, if you go back and listen to it, it was more of a, he didn't say it this way, but this is the intent that I got from it, is more of a, in a pinch. If the need is there, Tosh could move to guard.
Like an emergency situation.
I don't see that. I don't see
6'8", man. That's tough.
6'8" and not a mover. I mean, that's the thing, is he's 6'8", not a mover. So now, but if you're traveling and you can only take 8 or 9 offensive linemen with you because your limits on how many you can travel, and you only take, one guard, one backup guard, and you have a couple injuries or something like that. Yeah, okay. Tosh can go in there and get you out of a game. There's no doubt. But I just don't think that's a permanent move, in my opinion.
No. It's just the pad level, ability to create leverage. Like, it's just tough for a 6'8" guy in general to play guard. I mean, that's why you don't see that. It's like you just don't see it. It's like there's a rare case occasionally where you see like a 6'6" guy playing guard, a 6'7" guy. I mean, like Josh Lugg played guard, but it's just tough for a 6'8" guy to consistently gain leverage. It's just not easy. It's not easy. And like you said, Brian, if you're not a guy that just has that natural core strength and ability to move guys at the point of attack, it's tough, man. That's not really Tosh's game. It's not Tosh's game.
Yep.
From David Lowe. What's up, David? Brian, any chance Notre Dame needs any cornerback depth? I can't remember his name, but saw where a Notre Dame – Bobby Taylor Jr., where a Notre Dame legacy top Bobby Taylor Jr. is in the portal from A&M.
No, that's not a fit for Notre Dame. They looked at him. He camped at Notre Dame in high school, and they just decided it wasn't a fit. Scheme fit, just a lot of different ways. So I don't think he was that. He was an okay prospect. He's not his dad as a player. Jalen Greathouse just took his soul when they play. You remember that, Ryan? He took his soul when Jalen was a junior. Yeah. And they played against each other. So that's not a needle to me. And I don't think Notre Dame needs depth there. Notre Dame's got Cam Hart, Benjamin Morrison, Jaden Mickey, Chance Tucker, all of those guys, Ryan Barnes, Christian Gray, Micah Bell. And the only guy that's out of eligibility after this season is Cam Hart. And I think everybody in that group has a year, also has 25. Yeah, I believe as well.
And you'll have at least 2 corners in the 2024 class coming in as well. So
you've already got 2, right? To your point, yes, you can maybe even have a third. So I just don't see that need. If there was a couple injuries and maybe you'd want to go to the portal and get a kid who had a year, maybe, because you're like, hey, Cam's been banged up, Christian's hurt now. I still don't even think that's necessarily a need position, because you've got Clarence, right? You've got Clarence can play that position as well. I forgot to mention Clarence Lewis.
I always forget about Clarence too, man.
Because in my head, I've convinced myself that he needs to move to safety, and I just forget talking about him a corner. But he's a corner right now. And Clarence started for you when you went to the college football playoff. So they got plenty of depth at corner. I don't think that's a need. And I honestly don't think he moves the needle. He would at best be their number 5 safety or corner, Bobby Taylor Jr. at best. And so they're in a lot better position than I think the people. I just had to bring this next one up, Ryan, because it's just too funny from Zach Martin. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Zach Martin says, on National IB Rub Down Day, what are your preferred shower soaps?
Yeah. First of all, I'm so glad I caught that. I'm so glad that I caught that before I hit submit. That I had typed rub down instead of run down. My wife had been buying me Old Spice, like 2-in-1, but I don't really like 2-in-1 soaps because I feel like they don't clean my body well enough. But I'm I'm a simple guy, right? I'm a dial guy. Give me a dial and a loofah, and I'm good to go. I don't really get too fancy when it comes to soaps.
Funny story. My dad's actually allergic to dial soap. So
really?
There you go. A random fact there.
What's in it that he doesn't
know?
Idea.
He just breaks out from it. I don't know.
Interesting.
But I use Zach whatever my wife supplies.
Whatever your wife buys you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
That's her thing, man.
Nothing wrong with that.
Make me smell good and make me clean. I'm good.
Yes. She's the one that's got to smell you. Yeah. There's
no
doubt.
It's very
No
true.
doubt. That's right.
It's like my deodorant, right? Like I use Old Spice, like a different,
Same
like
here,
a
yeah.
specific type of Old Spice, but it's like, which one do you think smells good, babe? Cool. There we
Right.
go.
Like, which kind do you like? It's like, and you know me, I don't care. I just want deodorant that works. I don't really care what it
I
smells
don't want to
like.
be the smelly guy. Like that's
Yeah,
all I'm
yeah,
worried
exactly.
about.
You're the one that cares more about what exactly I smell like.
Yes.
So, yeah.
100%. Yep.
Yep. Good call.
From Bailey Brad, I've never really paid attention to this, but at Notre Dame, do cornerbacks stay on the side of the field or do they follow wide receivers?
They have always been, at least in recent years, going back to Mike Elko for sure. They've always been field boundary.
Yeah.
So, so short side of the field to wide side of the field, essentially. Now, there are times when they're playing teams that play tempo that they'll stay left, right.
Can't switch.
I think Notre Dame eventually could be in the position when you look at the young talent that they're recruiting. When you look at, I mean, if comes a time someday where Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray are starting corners, play left or right if you want to. I don't care. They can both play boundary, both can play field. Yeah. So I'm good with that. Cam Hart could do that now, but I think they really like Cam to the field because he's so rangy.
Yeah.
And you've got to
have a really good tackler against screens too. He's a really good screen guy. So
very much so. We got a super chat from Truman. We haven't seen Truman in a while. Truman, good to see you, man. Thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, Truman, thank you so much. And his question is there any sleeper picks for blue and gold? I pick Ryan Barnes as a sleeper and Jaden Osbury, also Jason Onye.
Those are good ones on defense.
Yes.
I mean, I'd love to see, because remember, Ryan Barnes had a couple big sticks in last year's spring game. I'd love to see those, especially Jaden Osbury. We talked about Jason Onye. I'm telling you, if you're talking about sleeper, a guy that just gets, because we've talked a lot about Jason Onye, right, this spring. I mean, a ton. Guy that maybe a lot of people aren't talking a lot about on defense, and I'm very curious to see kind of what he does in the blue gold game is Donovan Heinisch. I really am. He's a guy that I got my eye on. I want to see him do something this spring. Offensively, Ryan, a surprise.
Jabron Payne. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. But if he balls out and you're like, oh, dude might have to play a little bit this year, man. Like, not too bad. So he would be one. Wide receiver wise, I mean, I wouldn't be like overly surprised, but I mean, if one of the freshmen are like the best receiver on the day, then like, yeah, sure.
Jaden Greathouse catches like 7 balls for 130. I mean, that surprised me a little bit just because I don't know if the opportunities are going to be there for that.
Exactly.
But yeah, it surprised me a little bit. But just, again, not because of the talent. It's just because of the opportunity. Talent's there.
What would be, I think what would surprise some people, because I think that there's a modest expectation for what Mitchell Evans will do from a receiver production rise. But like, what if Mitchell Evans comes out, Brian, he's just like 5 catches, 85 and a tutty during the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, all right. Might have something there.
Yeah, no doubt. But see, I kind of already been like, yeah, okay, that's what I expect. Like, that's how I am with Mitchell. I mean, tight end, but also, Mitchell won me over. I was not a big Mitchell Evans. Not that I wasn't a fan. I had a hard time evaluating him because he was a quarterback. And it's kind of rangy, but I didn't see explosiveness. What was his frame going to look like? Could he block anyone? What was a kind of lowly ranked guy, but man, John McNulty was all about Mitchell Evans, man. And he was right. I mean, it's
a good evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, he's played a lot more than I thought he was going to out of necessity. And he wasn't ready to as a freshman. He was not physically ready to play as a freshman, but he did it anyway. And he answered the bell every single week when he had the chance. And now you go into year 3, and he's going to be a lot more grown man strong. Because I've said this before. You look at a picture of Mitchell Evans and Joe Alt, and they look like, just neck up, they look like little kids. My wife actually said this to me. She was at Mission Barbecue last week getting some dinner, and the offensive linemen were there. And I guess Joe Alt had walked up, and she's like, this giant walks up next to me. And she goes, and so I look up, and she's like, and he looked like a little kid in the face.
Yes.
She goes, who is that? I said, oh, that's Joe Alt. That's definitely
100% Joe Alt.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And she's like, he looked like he was like 15 in the face, but he's just giant. And I'm like, yeah, that's Joe Alt. That's definitely Joe Alt. Mitchell Evans is kind of that way too. He looks like a little kid. He's a very young baby face, right? Well, and the reason that matters is because I have a feeling like there's a big physical jump coming for Mitchell either this year or next year, where you're going to see him like either this summer or maybe after next season going into spring ball. he's going to come out for an interview and you're going to be like, who's that? Who's the dude with
Yeah.
the beard and the jacked up muscles? Yeah, it's like, oh, that's Mitchell Evans, right? You know what I mean, Ryan? Like,
because he's already 6'5", 260. Like he's got a good frame, right? It's like, that could happen. Could happen.
Yeah. So, like, I remember seeing pictures of him last year, and he just all the other tight ends are like jacked up, and Eli Raritan's like ripped up, and you can tell he like shaves every other day, if not every day. And then you see Mitchell Evans over there looking like a 13-year-old, in the face, and probably shaves every 4 or 5 days, maybe. And he has like no definition, and you're just like, because he's got a very young body. This is the whole thing people have to understand. This is the difficulty of evaluating players. You got a very young body. These aren't insults about Mitchell. In fact, they're actually kind of good things. I mean, it's because if he's doing what he's doing now and he still has that real young body, when that part goes away and he starts looking like a grown man, he's going to be a dude.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to meet his dad one time after his freshman year after a game. His mom and dad came up to me and, like, if this is what his dad looks like, Mitchell's going to fill out quite nicely. Like his dad looked like
dude too.
His dad looked like he could get in a 3-point stance, and if I talked bad about his son, make me never want to talk bad about his son again. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm glad that you guys don't dislike me because I'm catching an L in this one, right? If it comes down to it, I'm catching an L in this one. So. But
no board drills or Oklahoma for you against Mr. Evans. No. Okay.
Nope. I'd be like, yeah, I got you. And then I'd pull a hammy as I'm walking up to the. Oh, I'm sorry, I would have had you, but
Vince, take him, Vince.
Yeah, Vince, get on that, man. And it's like, what? What are you nuts? Yeah. So, but yeah, he's gonna be that guy. He's going to be that guy, in my opinion. I just don't know when that's going to happen. Dude, it may not happen until he gets to the NFL. I mean, really, it could because he doesn't have that 5th year. That's the thing. That's the only negative I have about Mitchell is he lost that year in 21 out of necessity.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have that extra year. But it could be a thing where he's like a 3rd-round draft pick or something, or and all of a sudden it hits in his between his senior year and his rookie year, and they're like, who the heck is this freaking guy?
Kind of happened for George Kittle, man. Like people forget George Kittle wasn't that guy in Iowa, man.
Yeah.
Like he was good. He wasn't that guy in Iowa, and then he developed into that guy. So
yeah, I'm trying to think what was George Kittle's rookie year, Ryan? Do you remember?
I don't know if he was killer as a rookie. I remember his 2nd year, I think, was when he was like, okay.
Yeah, here's what George Kittle did I was only looking at that from I wanted to look up his numbers. But as a freshman in 2013, George Kittle had 6'4", 225. He had 5 catches for 108 yards.
Yep.
The next year, he had a whopping 1 catch for 25 yards. He broke out as a junior with 20 catches for 290 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then as a senior, he had a monster campaign of 22 catches for 314 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he was 6'4", 250.
He wasn't that guy at Iowa.
Right, exactly. Guys develop differently, right? And TJ Hawkinson has never been better than he was as a junior in Iowa. So guys just they do. Mike Mayer stepped on campus in Notre Dame looking like a grown-up.
Yes.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like physically looking like a grown-up. And he's gotten thicker, but he still looks exactly like he did as a freshman. I mean, he's just a little bigger now.
As a freshman, Michael Mayer could have made an NFL roster. Not saying like he's a starting tight end, but like could have made a roster.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a little. Yeah. We got a next one here, Ryan. Let's move on.
From Nathan Milton. Should long snapper be? Wait.
That's Lorenzo Styles.
Oh, Lorenzo Styles. I'm sorry. LS is a long snapper.
Michael Vince. What are you doing? Michael Vince in the safety? What are you talking
Well, I saw elite safety at the end. I'm like, okay. Should Lorenzo Styles be an elite safety?
No, I don't think could he? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he can be an elite receiver at this point. I mean, I have no idea. The reason I would never say safety and really project safety is because he's never played it. At least with corner, we've seen him play corner. Saw him play it in high school, and he's pretty good at it. That's the position Ohio State wanted him to play. I can't then project him to a safety. I think there's corner. It would be a much easier transition for a Clarence Lewis or a Ryan Barnes or even a Chance Tucker to make than it would be for Lorenzo Styles. I feel like doing that, Nathan, would be moving him to fill a need as opposed to putting him somewhere where you think he's got a chance to thrive. That would be it. And I just, now maybe he moves to corner and he shows some things that then make you think, dude, next year you lose DJ, maybe you lose Ramon, and all of a sudden you're thinking, man, Lorenzo could go play corner safety and be a stud.
Sure.
But I'd want it to be proved by what he does. I wouldn't just throw him over there now. I don't think that'd be fair to him.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's just kind of how I see it.
Yep.
All right. Irish for life.
Says B. Ryan, what are your favorites non-alcoholic beers?
I have never had an alcoholic beer or a non-alcoholic beer, so I couldn't tell you.
We did give a kid when I was in high school at a party a bunch of O'Doul's, which is a non-alcoholic beer, but we didn't tell him it was non-alcoholic, and he thought he was drunk, which was pretty hysterical. Yeah. But I don't drink. I don't partake in non-alcoholic beers. If I'm drinking beer, it is a beer.
You like your alcoholic piss water, right, Ryan? You like your piss water.
I'm actually not a huge beer guy, man. Okay. I'm more of a whiskey bourbon type of dude. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like if something smells like piss, I'm not going to drink it. And that's just, I remember the first time I ever smelled a beer, I was about 11, 12 years old. My mom was working the bar at a friend of hers' wedding. And she was like, hey, Brian, take this over to the wedding party or something like that. Cause she knew I was going to drink it. I was, but I remember smelling them thinking, this smells terrible. Like, how do people drink this? It smells awful.
Beer doesn't smell good. You're right.
No,
you're not wrong there.
No. And it looks like what I do in the toilet when it's just like so hard pass. Yeah. So like, I don't like the taste of coffee, but at least coffee smells good when you're brewing it.
It does smell good.
I'm not a beer. Now I've been told my wife likes sort of the fancier beers. She doesn't like Budweiser and Bud Light. So like boycott. Doesn't matter. We won't buy it anyway. I don't give a rip, But she doesn't do like Coors and Natty Lights and Milwaukee Best or anything.
Oh man, Natty Lights was a special in college.
Oh yeah. But so I've never. She likes like a Guinness and stuff like that. She likes those kind of I don't know what do you call those, Ryan? Like imported beers or whatever? I don't know.
Oh, imported.
But the darker stuff. Beers? The darker stuff.
Oh,
I guess. I don't know what the heck that is.
Beer. Just a dark beer.
So she likes them, but I just
I like beer with a little bit of citrus hints to it. I know that's not the manliest thing I could ever say in the world, but it is what it is. I'm not a beer guy. I'm really not. Like if I'm going out to a bar or something, I'm probably getting a Jameson on the rocks or Jameson sour, like just getting something easy like that. So.
Ryan, this is a response I always get from people when they're trying to convince me to try beer. They say beer is an acquired taste. It is smart to acquire a taste for a cheap one if you're going to drink it. My thing is, but why would I need to acquire it? Like if I have to acquire it, why would I need to pay to acquire taste? Like what's the point? Yeah. I'm never going to drink to get drunk. I've never been drunk. It's just not my thing. If I'm going to drink something, I want it to taste good. That's the only reason I would consume a beverage. So if I have to acquire the taste, I just don't understand the point. It's just not my thing, man.
My dad's a Molson Ice guy. He's a madman. He likes the Canadian beer. Yeah. So that's that. Yeah.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
It's not my flavor, man. I drink a couple of those. I'm like,
my man Antoine, Ryan, I'm hurt, man. I'm really hurt right now. My man Antoine said, "Don't let him shame you, Ryan. I'll drink a beer with you." He's un-American. I'm hurt, Antoine.
Yeah, man.
I'm hurt. You call me un-American because I don't like beer. I'm a little sad right now, my man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
But Antoine, if you want to come out to South Bend this weekend, man, I'll drink a beer with you too, sir.
Go for it.
A beer with you.
Yeah. I won't. It's not personal. I'm not drinking a beer with you.
You can just hang out though. We can still hang out.
Yeah. Look, I went to parties in college. I would be that guy that shows up with 2 Mountain Dews in his front pocket and 2 Gatorades in his back pocket. I have no problem going out. I just don't have the desire to drink alcohol. So it's just always been kind of my thing. Even before I was a Christian, I didn't drink alcohol. It's not that I judge it. It's just, I'll be honest with you, Ryan. For me, it's like I have a very addictive personality. So like I'll start, and like when I worked at Texas Roadhouse back when I was a youth pastor, it's like I just get into these habits where every night after work I had to stop at McDonald's and get a chocolate milkshake from the McDonald's. Was open like till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just get into those things where it's like, it's a habit. I develop habits when it comes to things that I consume, alcohol, food wise. Like I could eat, if I can find a food that I like I make homemade chicken parm and I mean chicken Alfredo, and I love it. I could literally make it every single day and I'd be happy. And my wife, she can't do that. She barely likes leftovers. She needs something different every day. And so that was just something I made at a very young age where I was like, number one, I'm a control freak. I don't like not being in control. And that's when I've seen in my family what alcohol can do to people in that regard. That was just a personal thing. But it's also like I have a very addictive personality where if I like something, I want it all the time. And that's definitely not something that I wanted to develop that for. So that's a personal decision.
It's very fair.
And
very fair.
like my wife and I had to have a lot of debates because she'll drink a beer. She likes a glass of wine. I don't consume alcohol at all. And it took her a couple years in our marriage to be comfortable having a glass of wine with me because she just looked at it as like judgment on my end. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's just personal choice. Just like I don't like ketchup. Doesn't mean I judge you for liking ketchup. It just means I don't like ketchup. No,
I never knew that.
No,
never knew that.
Don't like mustard. Don't like any of that stuff.
I'm not really a mustard guy either.
Yeah, mayo. The only thing I'll have mayo in is tuna fish. But for the most part, like steaks and chicken, if you make me a piece of chicken that I need to put barbecue sauce on or something like that, then you didn't make the chicken right. You know what I mean? Unless it's cooked into the chicken, right? But if I got to
what do you have on a what do you put on a burger?
Well, it depends. I made a smash burger the other day, and I didn't put any salt seasoning on it because the way you cook it, it cooks so fast, and the juices are so thick, and it just has great flavor to it. But I put cheese, bacon, and lettuce. That's it. But normally on a burger, I'll put just salt, a little bit of salt, and I did have one burger rub on it, but my wife isn't eating sugar right now, so I was looking at the instructions. Like, well, can't put this on there because it has sugar in it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, you salt and pepper. But like steak, I got a really good steak seasoning. But like if you serve me a steak and I need A1 for that steak, then you didn't make the steak right.
I don't put anything on. I don't put anything on steak.
I kind of feel that way like about chicken. If you make me chicken and I need to put barbecue sauce on it, it's a dip, then you didn't make it right. Unless that's the intent. Like, hey, I'm making this because we're gonna dip it, whatever. But like,
oh man, we went to when we were in Disney. We went to Disney Springs, and they have this place called Chicken Guys. It's like Guy Fieri. That's like the chef guy. You know, So you get these chicken tenders, Brian. You can get like fried chicken tenders, or you can get some regular chicken tenders. And he has like 20-something different sauces there, man. And so you would hate that, but I loved it. I was like, give me some lemon pepper. I want some of that. There was what was
like if it's cooked into the chicken
sauce.
But if it's cooked into the chicken, like if you go to Buffalo Wild Wings or a wing place, and you get a certain flavor of chicken, but like that's part of the marinade or the sauce. What I'm saying is like if you cook me a chicken breast, and I have to cut it up and put it in a barbecue sauce to taste good, then you didn't make it right. I may still use barbecue sauce, but it's because I like the flavor of barbecue, not because your chicken doesn't taste good enough to have by itself. Right? That's kind of where I'm coming from on it.
I get that.
You know?
I get that.
So, but I like barbecue sauce. It's just I want to have the choice of not needing it to still be edible. But I haven't made chicken that I need barbecue sauce because I make chicken with things. I'll make chicken like I'll make a chicken and shrimp Alfredo, chicken Alfredo. I'll make it with chicken and rice, where I'll put a little garlic powder on it and cook it in olive oil and just mix it with a little bit of rice and stuff like that. I'm not really a big barbecue guy unless I'm having it like I'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings, stuff like that. But I want it cooked into it. I like barbecue. I really what it is, right? I really like the taste of chicken. Like chicken is a really tasty thing to me. And I feel like sometimes barbecue can kind of drown it out a little bit because barbecue is such a strong, tangy thing that kind of drowns out the taste of the chicken.
I get that.
Yeah, like A1, the only thing I'll use A1 sauce for is I'll go to if we go to a steakhouse and like Texas, my wife and I love to go to Texas Roadhouse, the one out in Elkhart. And I'll get A1 sauce, and the lady will kind of look at me, and I'm like, I swear it's not for my steak. But I like it. I like mushrooms dipped in because I love mushrooms. I like mushrooms dipped in barbecue or A1 sauce. It's actually really good. But I don't put it on steak. I'm serious. If you give me a steak that I need my A1 sauce for, then I want you to make me a new steak because you didn't make it right. But Antoine is just. I have lost a friend today. Antoine is no longer my boy. He has disowned me because of I don't like ketchup. I don't like beer. And And so I have lost a friend. You hurt me, Antoine.
I'm not the biggest beer guy, though. I'm really not the biggest beer guy. But ketchup, yes, give me some ketchup.
Yeah. My wife likes ketchup on a lot of things. My mom likes ketchup with her eggs.
Oh, no. We don't do that. We don't do that around here. We don't do that. Nope.
Gross. Patrick Frost did actually respond, Ryan, to the clarification. So I did want to bring that up from earlier.
Sure. Patrick says, what is important as a team to do the players have trust in each other? When you have trust, it eliminates many questions if your mind, and it builds upon progress and excellence.
So that was back to the kind of the quarterback question. Patrick, I just think sometimes it just depends on who's doing the picking. Yeah. And it could just be a thing where, hey, that's my boy and I'm taking my boy, or that's the guy that I've worked with all spring. And honestly, that's part of the reason that I would have Sam Hartman and Tyler Buckner on different teams. I would have them part of the drafting process just to remove the potential of there being anything taken from that. So, hey, you're over here, Sam, you're with this team, Tyler, you're with that team, and you guys are drafting. So that way, because what's going to happen, right? Let's say that both of those are draftable and they draft Tyler Buckner first. There's going to be that spin on it. Or they draft Sam Hartman first. There's going to be the spin on that. I would just remove that and say, Sam, you're on this team, Tyler, you're on that team. You guys are part of the drafting process. That's where I would go.
That could get messy. To your points. So
yeah. All right, let's get to some more. So thank you for clarifying that, Patrick. I do appreciate that. Let's get back on track here, Ryan.
This question from David Lowe. He said, Brian, would you rather see the receivers and quarterbacks looking great or the defensive line and linebackers looking great in the spring game?
I would much rather see the offensive guys look better, because I feel like the D-line and the linebackers are at least going to have a baseline here that we know of. It's just, are they going to get even better?
Yeah.
I'm more curious to see like the offense clicking. The other part too is it's just more fun. A spring game's more fun if there's offense happening. It just is. It's a shorter game. It's April. I don't really want to see I don't really care if my defenses are playing lights out. I want to see some fun. I want to see some action. I want to see some guys getting the ball. I want to see the ball moving. I'd much rather see that. I'd much rather see a little bit more open offense.
Yeah. We saw too many games last year with like 80 something passing yards or 100 passing yards. Like I want to see the quarterbacks and wide receivers throw the ball around, to your point.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like if JD Bertrand is just a good player like he has been over the last couple of years, right? Like that is a baseline. But we are projecting, Tobias Merriweather, 1 catch last season. Deion Colsey, not a ton of production. 16 career catches or something like that was what he has. Like so there's potential, but you haven't seen as much production from those two units, and you're breaking in a new quarterback. So, I mean, for me, I would rather see quarterbacks and wide receivers throwing the ball around a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing, I want to clear up something real quick. Karen brought this up. I just want to make sure, Karen, I'm clear. She says, I don't want to see, there should be no way that Buckner and Hartman should be on the same team. Hopefully they stipulate tomorrow. What I was referring to, Karen, is not so much that they'd be on the same team. I meant like, if one of them is picked before the other, it can create issues. So what I would do is I'd put Hartman on one team and Buckner on the other as part of the draft of the guys that are doing the drafting, and not let them be draftable. So they're on separate teams.
Or maybe just let them draft it. Yeah.
I didn't mean that I'd be worried that they both get drafted on the same team. Because what they would do is because remember last year they did trades, or the coaches would then go and say, okay, you don't have a complete roster. We're moving this guy over. They still change it around. I meant more of, I just don't want them to be draftable at all. Sure. And just because you and I both know exactly what site would write it, but there'd be this whole, Tyler Buckner was picked before Sam Hartman thing, and further evidence of blah. You know what I mean? And I just don't even want to have to deal with that, to be completely honest with you. So I would not have them drafted. Yeah, I wouldn't have them drafted.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
a couple sites would probably write that, honestly, but
yeah. And I know which two I'm talking about too. So ridiculous. All right, here we go. Here's an interesting one from Irish Blooded, right?
Irish Blooded says, what do you think is more valuable for a returning player, spring ball or fall ball?
It depends. I mean, there's so many different
Yeah,
questions. Is he a second-year returner? Is it a returner like Josh Burnham? On spring is important. I mean, you got to lay that foundation. If it's a Cam Hart, one of the things we said before spring ball, even if Cam Hart was cleared to tackle and stuff, I would not have him take on a single block. I would not have him do anything that could potentially get him hurt because I don't care what Cam Hart does in March and April. Don't care.
yeah, yeah.
Benjamin Morrison, I still need it. He needs that development for the spring.
Yep.
So they're at different places. I'm happy that JD Bertrand's having a good spring. I didn't care. I think Jack Kaiser needed it more than JD did because Jack's playing a little bit more of a unique role. He's doing a few more different things. The emphasis for him is a little bit different. So it varies kid to kid. It really does.
It does. It does.
This spring is more important for Blake Fisher than it is for Joe Alt, in my opinion. I had one goal for Joe Alt this spring. Don't get hurt.
Yes.
That's it. That's it. So it's way more. This spring's way more important for Billy Shrout than it is for Zeke Corral. So it just depends. It depends. But spring is an important period for just about everybody. It's just your emphasis of what you're trying to get out of this spring is like for Cam Hart. The emphasis this spring was get healthy, show leadership by not being out there. Coach these guys up. Look at the game differently. Be involved in that way where you're now coaching up these guys as well. It's a great learning tool for him, but it's not important for him to go out there and get 1 million reps and one-on-ones and team and stuff like that. That's a little bit different.
Yeah, and just calling someone a returning player doesn't really speak about their resume either. It's like if a guy's a multi-year starter as a returning player, I care more about the fall. Like the spring is just kind of, again, it's just like maintenance and attention to detail, that type of stuff. But for a guy that is, let's say he's a sophomore or a junior, but like he might be stepping up into a big role this year, and maybe he didn't have it last year. Spring is very beneficial for like laying that groundwork to develop into that role. So it really does depend, but it's different for every player.
Yep. All right. Here's another one. This is an interesting one, Ryan.
Nathan Milton says, who is the twitchiest player on the roster? Wow. We're combining all positions.
That is let's go pound for pound. Who's the twitchiest guy? Man, I'll tell you who my 5 in the conversation are.
Sure.
As far as I can think of. Here's the 5 in the conversation for me. At linebacker, it's Jalen Sneed and Nolan Ziegler. As far as twitchiness.
Yep.
Pre-injury, Jadarian Price is one. Twitchiest. Josh Burnham.
Yeah.
Is one. And boy, pound for pound.
Braylon James is pretty twitchy.
Braylon is in that conversation. Xavier Watts is a little bit in that conversation.
I think Jalen Sneed would be my answer. Jalen's pretty dang twitchy, man.
Yeah. He's not as fast as Nolan Ziegler, I don't think. It's close, but you talk about like just that first step, which is to me, when I think twitchy, that's more of what I'm thinking about. He's got it. Like Will Fuller was not twitchy. He's not twitchy. Will Fuller had one of the slowest starts I've ever seen for a burner.
Yeah.
His first 2 steps were like, okay, but then it's like, oh my gosh, did you see that gear? Fuller was a gear guy. He was a second, third gear guy. Whereas other guys are just like, man, that first step is crazy.
Well, that was the best thing. That was the thing that I loved most about, like, you can go back and listen to like some of our film rooms on like Braylon James. That was the thing about that, Brian, is like for a 6'2.5", 6'3" dude, he gets off the line fast, man. I'm like, sheesh, that kid is twitched up, man. Like he's running
a 4.47, right? He's running a 4.47 from step 1. I say that hyperbolically, but you get the point that I'm making. Where Will Fuller was he's gained speed guy, which is why so much of what Dill did was posts and goes and stuff like that. That's why so much of what he did was that.
I think Jordan Botello's twitchy. He's another guy that's really twitched up. Yeah.
Jason Onye for the D tackles probably takes the cake for me in that regard.
Yeah.
Howard Cross is pretty twitchy, but he's a little undersized. You kind of expect that first step from him.
Yeah.
But he's got a really nice first step burst. He really does.
Yeah, I think Jalen Sneed would be my, like, just thinking about it, like, Jalen's super twitchy, man. He's real twitched up. We had a next question from Rob Tidoff, who says, Brian and Ryan, do you think we will see less 6 feet and under quarterbacks in the NFL due to injuries and more back to the traditional drop back gunslingers like Elway, Marino, and the best Driscoll?
Are you seeing a lot of injuries to guys?
Kyler Murray's the one that keeps getting injured a ton, but I mean, other than that, like Russell Wilson's durable.
Kid.
Like,
yeah. And as he said, I was incredibly durable. I played through pain, so I like Rob's comment there. I caught that, Rob. I appreciate you, buddy. But here's the thing. But John Elway and Dan Marino both had a couple devastating injuries during their careers.
Yeah,
Dan Marino had the Achilles. Elway tore his knee up really early in his career, and he was never the same athlete. Now in today's era, Elway would have been able to maintain that because the injuries that made John Elway retire at 38 as opposed to playing until he was 43 were ones that today aren't as devastating. But like if you go back and look at John Elway athletically, his first 2 years, I mean, he was a freaky athlete. Like, he was Josh Allen 30 years before Josh Allen, 40 years before Josh Allen, and I would argue better than Josh Allen, but the starting style of play. John Elway was a different animal, man. I mean, he was so athletic, but and of course had that cannon for an arm. But then when he tore his knee up, he was still an athlete, but he wasn't the same kind of athlete. I mean, like when you watched him running around in that first Super Bowl at 37 years old, and you're like, that's not the athlete I remember, man. You remember the spin and all that. I mean, he was still an athlete for his age, but you're like, that guy's got some tread on them tires, and it's just the nature of where he played. But I mean, injuries happen, man. It's part of the game.
I would say the injuries that were the injuries that pop in my head, like Kyler Murray's one that definitely keeps getting banged up. And obviously he's only 5'10" and some change and 205 or whatever he is now, 210, whatever his weight's up to now. But like a lot of the athletic quarterbacks that are like most injury prone is actually like Lamar, who's like 6'2 and a half, 215 plus.
So, somebody brought up Tua, but Tua's injury had nothing to do with his height.
Yeah.
Had to do with him getting hit in the head. Now you could say, well, a guy that's shorter is going to get hit in the head more. Sure. But wasn't his last one that was really bad? Wasn't it? It was hitting the ground. Yeah, right. And that's not relative to size.
Yeah.
So I mean, Russell Wilson for the most part was pretty durable until he got to his 30s, right? Really wasn't his first major injury in his 30s?
Has he had a major injury?
I mean, it's like he played with it, but he still remember he was banged up. What was his second to last year in Seattle or his last year in Seattle?
Yeah, I think he missed some games. You're right. Yeah.
So
he's like one of those guys, man, that despite him being 5'11" or whatever he is, Russell Wilson is one of those dudes that knows how to protect himself. Like he knows how to protect himself. Even when he was running a lot more when he was younger, he knew how to protect his body. So.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's good. I think, Rob, we'll see the shift that you're talking about happen, but it'll be more stylistic, not because of injuries. It'll be more about style of play. Yeah. And that's what I think. That's what I think it'll cause it.
And I mean, Rob, I don't think it's ever going to be like go back to the, like when you say traditional drop back gunslingers, like I think that body types are going to keep getting bigger, right? Like these more athletic dudes, like you're going to be like, wow, I want Josh Allen, right? Like I want guys that look like that type of dude.
I put them in that category. I think Josh Allen's a gunslinger. I do. I think he freelances.
Oh yeah, he's a gunslinger. But I mean, like he's a drop back, but like he's also an athletic dude. I mean, he ran for like 700 yards last year. You know what I mean?
But Josh Allen is Josh Allen because there's not a lot of people like him.
Sure.
Pat Mahomes is Pat Mahomes because there's not a lot of people like him.
But everyone's going to try to find those guys.
I get
next.
that.
Like that's going to be the archetype.
Because I'm going to somewhat disagree with you, Ryan, and here's why I say that. Because I think a lot of teams are smart enough to know I can't beat you with that because there isn't that guy out there. But you know what I can find? I can find the next Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? I can find the next there's a greater chance that the next two drafts are going to have a Joe Burrow type than a Josh Allen type or a Pat Mahomes type or a Lamar Jackson type is my point. I have a greater chance of finding an Aaron Rodgers than I do the next Pat Mahomes. And what I mean by that is if you look at the history of NFL, there's a lot in the last 40 years, there's a lot more guys with similar physical tools to what Aaron Rodgers had. Physical tools, Ryan, not mental tools and all that, but physical tools to Aaron Rodgers than John Elway. There's a lot more guys that had similar physical tools to Dan Marino than John Elway, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think because you're not going to be able to find that next Josh Allen because just those guys just aren't getting there's not that guy in the draft. There will be teams that do look for that though, but those are teams that suck. There's a team that's going to look at Will Levis and say that's my Josh Allen, but that's why that team's always picking in the top 10. You know, I mean that's the reality of it, and they'll feel the same way about Anthony Richardson. Although I think that's a little more legitimate one than Will Levis. You know, like I think Will Levis is more Jim Truckenmiller than he is the next Josh Allen. I could see Anthony Richardson being that kind of guy. The physical tools are there, but that's why Anthony Richardson's considered a unicorn because there just aren't a lot of guys like him. You know?
Yeah, I just feel like unicorns are becoming more of an thing you see. Like it's almost like I think Joe Burrow's like kind of becoming an outlier. Like there's not a ton of those guys that are just coming through. It's like that's more of a Peyton Manning archetype than like a I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of.
But
like,
see, I kind of feel like, I feel
like
like that's who C.J. Stroud is. That's who Bryce Young is. They're that type of player. Their body's a little different. But like, think about it. If C.J. Stroud stayed 2 more years in college, which is what Joe Burrow was. Joe Burrow was a 5th-year senior, correct?
Yes,
I believe.
Yep.
So that means C.J. would have to play 2 more years to be at the same place that Joe Burrow was. You don't think that he would be on that level as a college football player, as a prospect? I think he would. And my point is there's just going to be more guys coming along like that. There's going to be more guys that are physically a Bryce Young, a C.J. Stroud, a Joe Burrow physically.
I guess I'm thinking it from a play style perspective.
Sure, I get that.
Like,
I'm talking about the things that you can't teach.
Yeah.
And that's what separates Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. You can't teach that. I can't teach a guy that can roll to his left and throw the ball 55 yards over the top of the defense. I just, I always loved it. You sit down with coach and like, yeah, well, I watched this play on Saturday and I think we can implement that. And I'm like, okay, show me the play. And I'm like, dude, that quarterback threw the ball 60 yards. I have a freaking Division III quarterback. What are you talking about? Yeah, well, look how well that play worked because they allowed it to get 60 yards down the freaking field. My receivers are running 4.7s. You know how long it's going to take them to get that far down the field, even if we had a quarterback that could throw the ball that far? It's just like you got to understand that it's a different animal, man. And that's what makes those guys fun to watch. But, Joe Burrow is a very different type of skill set than those guys. But, to me, he's got a chance to be every bit as good. And some people would say he already is. I know people that think he's already better than Josh Allen. I don't watch enough NFL to have an opinion on that. I'm just telling you, like,
it's a good debate.
You read that.
Yeah, it's good debate. It's good debate. I remember, I forget who it was. It was a coach that had worked with Pat Mahomes. So I don't know if it was Andy Reid or if it was Cliff Kingsbury. Like, I can't remember who it was. But I think it was an NFL coach, though, that was talking to Pat Mahomes when he was a rookie. And he was like, okay, you're looking at this play right here. Where would you throw it to? And he's like, he looked at it and he's like, I throw the backside post. And the guy's like, you would do what? Like, why would you ever do the backside post? And then they did the backside post. He's like, oh, that's why you would throw the backside post, because you can throw the backside post.
Because you can do that. Yeah. It's a nice problem to have. I've never had that problem as a coach. I never had that guy. So
yes,
it'd be nice.
Question for Rob Osgood, who said, what do I want to see? I want to see the improved passing game. I know the run game and the offensive line will be great, but the passing game, show me. It's fair.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair comment. Very fair comment. Here's from Antoine Porsche Rideau.
Antoine says, are we going to see starting receiver core of Merriweather and Colsey on the outside with Tyree in the slot?
I wouldn't say that's going to be the starting lineup. I think Jaden Thomas is going to be the starter. I think Chris Tyree is a guy that you're going to want to get 30 snaps for, not 70.
Yeah.
More so. He's going to play a bunch, but he's going to be more of a change of pace guy, in my opinion. That's what I think we'll see.
Yeah. I don't think we can just discount. We just can't discount what Jaden Thomas did last year. I mean, he was your best receiver by the end of the season. So he's going to play.
No doubt. And he brings a completely different skill set to the table than what Chris does. And again, I don't think Chris is a 60 snap guy at any position.
Yeah.
In my view, it's just a little bit different. Brent Smith, how serious is Lorenzo Styles moving corner? We don't know yet, Brent. I mean, we've written some articles on it. I think I'll say this. It's not just let's just see if he can do it and we need him in emergency. I mean, there's legitimate thought going into this potential move. Very legitimate thought. Will it end up happening or not? I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Couple more, right, we'll get to here.
Yep.
Roger Dodger, our resident USC fan. Thanks for being with us today, man.
Roger says, do you think Malik Murphy will transfer from Texas? He looked good at the spring game. I mean, maybe? I don't know.
I think so. I think Malik's going to realize, look, man, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Whether you think I'm better than Arch or not, there's going to be a fear. If I'm him, there's a fear that there's going to be some politics involved. That I've got to be so much better than Arch. Yeah, exactly. I got to be so much better than Arch to be the starter. I got to sit behind Quinn Ewers for at least another year, maybe 2.
Yeah.
You know, where he's got to start thinking, like, if I want to do this thing, I'm going to have to go somewhere else and do it. And Malik's got a lot of talent. Malik's pretty raw, too. I mean, he goes to a place with he's got a big arm. He's very raw, mechanically very raw, but he did look good in that Texas game. And if you go to a place that's got a good quarterbacks coach, I think that kid's got a chance to be a really good football player. Yeah. And nobody was talking about Malik Murphy going in the spring. It was Quinn and Brock. I mean, Quinn and Arch. Yeah. And now it's like, there's a lot. I'll just put it like this. I guarantee you there's a lot of Power 5 coaches that are praying that what you mentioned, Roger, is what happens. Yeah. Oh, man, I hope Malik Murphy jumps into the portal.
Well, and could you imagine the reaction from Texas fans, Brian, if, like, it's the 2024 season before that and they chose Malik Murphy over Arch Manning? They would, like, what? What are you doing, man? They'd be freaking out. So, yeah, I think there's going to be politics involved in that one for sure. There's definitely going to be some politics.
And those same fans are going to be the ones when Malik Murphy goes somewhere else. Somebody mentioned Louisville. Let's say he goes to Louisville and he's throwing forth that I can't believe you chose Arch. Oh, that's the reason I've said. People say, you need to run your site this way and run. I'm like, look, man, I'm going to run the site the way I want to run it. And if people don't want to read or watch, I understand that. I respect that. But if I'm going to do this and work 15, 16, 17-hour days, Ryan will tell you I'm texting him at 3 o'clock in the morning last night. Now, in fairness, I know that Ryan doesn't read those because he turns his phone off. So it's more for him to have in the morning. And it's just like, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it in the way that's fun. I'm not going to be able to do this for 30 years if I'm doing it the way that everybody else wants me to do it, right? And so there's nothing you're going to do that's going to make people happy. And because there's so many people out there like that. No matter what choice I make, this person's going to find fault with it. So you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, somebody out there is better than me at it. And that's just the way it is.
In my defense, I did text you back at like 1 a.m. So
you did. I was like, was your daughter awake or something? Like, what's going on, man?
Yeah, she woke up for a minute. She crawled into the bed, man. I was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
Yeah. Hey, let's get these last couple, Ryan, that we're going to get to before we get out of here. Here's a good one from Tyler Smith, Ryan.
Tyler says, can you give me your top 10 favorite college football stadium universities that you have seen or would like to see? That's a good question.
Well, let's say outside of Notre Dame, because that's obviously number one.
I would like to see Clemson at night.
Well, I'll tell you where I've been, and then you can add to them if I miss something that you want to see. Sure. You did get that one right. Clemson is a great campus because he says Stadiums University. Some part of it's just like there's some I have on here that I think have really cool stadiums that I think their campuses suck.
Yeah.
And there's some campuses that have really cool campuses, but like Stanford has a really cool campus, and I think their stadium's kind of blah, right? But Clemson has a great campus and a great stadium, and I was there at night. It was that rain game in 2015, so I'm looking forward to going back there again this year when it hopefully isn't raining this time. Virginia has a gorgeous campus and a really cool little stadium. It's not very big. Here's one that people are going to be surprised by. Wake Forest has a really nice campus, and their stadium's really tiny, but I love the layout of it. Because you've got basically 2 bleachers, and then you've got like the athletic facilities on this side, and then it's open on that side. Really cool little stadium, man. Really well designed, really pretty campus. Lots of trees around. North Carolina, gorgeous campus. Stadium's cool, but it's more about the campuses, and like all the seats are like Tar Heel blue, and it's a really cool state, but a gorgeous campus. Penn State's campus is not great, but their stadium is pretty awesome.
I want to see a whiteout game. That would be on my list.
Me too. Yeah. Texas has a really cool stadium, really cool stadium, and a inside. The outside is okay, but the inside's really cool looking, and the campus is all right.
Texas is one that would be on my list.
And the last one on my list of just that are more both, that are definitely both. Georgia has a really nice campus and a great stadium. That's being inside the, and here's the cool thing about Georgia too. It's an open press. Georgia and North Carolina and Virginia are all open press boxes. Or no, sorry, Virginia and Clemson, Virginia and Georgia are open press boxes. North Carolina is not. But that's what adds to that environment. Is at Clemson, we were outside. I mean, like, there's no windows, right? It's just it's open where we're sitting. And luckily there was an overhang, so we didn't get rained on. But you got a couple mists when the wind would pick up. But the Virginia, it's an outdoor campus, it's an outdoor press box, and then the same thing with Georgia, it was an outdoor press box, which I thought was awesome. Just because you could hear the noise, you could hear how loud it was, like you could really take in the environment. That I thought in a way that I thought was really cool, but the hedges, and it's just like, man, it's just really cool. It's a really cool campus. People there were awesome. Clemson's people were awesome too. They were great. I thought they were a lot of fun. Now here's 3 stadiums that I kind of like, Ryan, but the campuses aren't very good. Michigan Stadium's really cool. Campus, not so much. Florida State's campus, I think, stinks, but their stadium is really cool. Doak's a pretty cool stadium. And I love and this is more nostalgia, Ryan, but being inside the Carrier Dome was pretty. There's just not a view. There's just not a view in college football like that. Just the angle and just the whole thing. I thought that was pretty cool. And that's one we did together. So that's kind of my 10 of ones that I've been at that I think are pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you knocked out a couple. I mean, Penn State whiteout game would be one for me for sure. Clemson running down the hill was something that I would like to see. Virginia Tech, when they play their song in the beginning there, that's pretty dope. I like that. Texas would be one. I think Florida, Gainesville is kind of a spot that I've always wanted to check out a little bit. Florida Stadium. So it's a couple. Good ones. Yeah.
Some people mentioned Virginia Tech. I'm just not. I think Virginia Tech's campus and stadium is a little overrated. I
just want that beginning. I want that. I want them
very overrated, Ryan. Very, because it takes them forever. You're like, okay, get out here, guys. Like they start playing it, and then it just keeps going. You're like, where are they? When are they coming? I don't understand what the heck is happening. Right? It's very overrated in person, in my opinion. I've been there twice now for games. I was there in 2018 and again in 2021, and both times I just thought it was overrated. Just very over. And I was bummed too, because I felt the same way you do. I was like, this is going to be really cool. And then you're like, this is lame. Kind of like the Clemson thing with the buses, also very lame in person. Very lame in person. Because on TV, they're cutting to different angles and it looks really cool. Yeah. But in person, you're just like, you're watching a bus drive up. Okay, great. Wonderful. Now they're off the bus. Oh, wow. They're getting off the bus. Now the cool part was not the bus drive. It was watching them run down that hill. That's pretty awesome. That was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was really awesome. Those are the ones for me, Ryan. Those are the ones for me. Andre Tonsel asked Ryan, he says, do you have your power rankings? What are your top 20? Andre, we don't have that right now, but we are going to do that this summer. One thing that we're going to do, Ryan and I are going to do, and I don't know if we're going to do it as part of the Irish Breakdown channel. It's going to be on our site, but it depends on how quickly we can get the CFB Nation website launched. We're eventually going to have a CFB Nation website, and I'll do a lot of the content for that. But we are going to do some national college football stuff this summer. What we're not sure of what we're going to do is, are we maybe do it like a Wednesday or Thursday? What we're not sure of is if it's going to be a live show on this channel or a live show on CFB Nation. That's the only question. And right now I'm leaning towards doing it on CFB Nation, which is why y'all need to subscribe to that. So, where we'll do sort of a top 25 countdown. I'm going to start doing some nightly things at some point in time when my voice recovers, where I'm going to do sort of like some weekly quick hitters. Like they probably won't be live, but they'll be recorded videos that I publish at 8:00 where like a little 10-minute talk, Driscoll rant on whatever topic, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, we will release a top 25. We're going to have an IB top 25. It won't be a power ranking because power ranking kind of looks more at my understanding is power ranking doesn't just look at right now. It's sort of a right now based on what's been, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure on how that's calculated, but ours will be more of a projecting to the 2023 season. Now, of course, you have a view of what the team has done, right? And
sure.
And I'll say this: the only ranking that I know for sure for me is going to be Georgia's number one, because I don't care how many starters they lost. They didn't lose as much as they did the year before, and they were even better this year as a team record-wise than they were the year before. You could argue if they were a better team or not. I mean, that's debatable, sure. But record-wise, the year before they went 14-1. This year they went 15-0. I mean, and that was after losing 15 guys in the NFL. That was just the guys that got drafted. And they had some guys that went undrafted. And it's just more of a personal opinion. Barring a unique circumstance where you have a roster and a coaching makeover, kind of like what LSU did, but more so coaching. I mean, the coaching's got to change too. I'm a believer, Ryan, that you're the champs until somebody beats you. And that's especially true when you won back-to-back championships. So say whatever you want about what they lose, what this team has, whatever the case may be. This isn't just the SEC. This is all college football. Georgia is going to rank number one for me until somebody beats them. And I don't think there's any other way that you can do it, in my opinion. If you're doing a true this season top 25, say, well, it's about this year, not last year. I understand all that, but what else are the rankings based on other than a projection, right? And right now, what I can project is based on, I don't know, last 2 years, I have a 29 out of 30% chance of getting it right that Georgia's going to win. You know what I mean? You're the champ till somebody beats you. I'm a believer in that. And so they're my number one. After that, there's going to be a fun debate on that, right? And you and I are going to have it. We're going to have that. So Andre, we will do that at some point, but we don't have it right now. We'll have a show about that, just like we'll evaluate, rankings and stuff and things that come out at those different times. So yeah, we'll do all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to let everybody kind of know that. And yeah, we'll go there. And my wife is not here. I've already punished my entire tea. I got sick last night, just so everybody understands. And, you feel like it, appreciate some prayer. But about, 5:30 in the morning, I woke up and things were coming out of things that are supposed to be exit only, right? And it jacked my throat up pretty bad. But, Ryan, rule number 76. No excuses. Play like a champion. And I've canceled enough shows lately. I was like, look, it's going to hurt and it's going to sound like crap, but we're doing a show today. So, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I had tea and honey in my tea and all that, but I've kind of punished that. So this is just how I'm going to sound today. So I apologize to everybody, but
Trooper, man.
At least the content was still good, even though I sound like Barry White all of a sudden now that we're getting towards the end of the show. So, but hey, Irish Breakdown's my first, my last, my everything. So that's, and for any of you that don't know that, that's a Barry White song. So Ryan's like, I don't understand what that means. It's a Barry White song.
I know who Barry White is.
We may know who Barry White is, but you'll know a Barry White song. Anyway. So why don't you take us out of here, Ryan?
Yep. Want to appreciate everybody again. A lot of talking points today. If you joining us late here in the podcast, go back and listen to some Blue Gold predictions. We also had some spring surprises. Did a little bit of a recruiting update, but also talked a little bit about the draft coming up tomorrow morning for the Blue Gold game. So make sure before you head out of here, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast. 5-star reviews are always very much appreciated on your favorite podcast platform. We'll catch you all again tomorrow.
We're going to have some intel on the board coming up here. Make sure you watch that. Now, if intel later too, make sure you're on the message boards for that.
Make sure you're on the message boards for that at boards.irishbreakdown.com. From Brian, I am Brian. Thank you all again so much for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast.